CH50 Poker Face 1. Nick and his group entered the basement of the hero department and found themselves in the interrogation room. Their eyes widened at the sight before them. Theo and Rock stood facing each other. On the other side of the glass window, they saw Instructor Francis, whom they knew well, sitting broken. Although he seemed outwardly normal, it was evident to Nick and his group that something was seriously wrong. He's completely out of sorts. No one uttered a word. However, everyone present knew that Theo had implicated Francis as a suspect. Aisha blinked in surprise. What? What's going on? Professor James. Theo interrupted Aisha and turned his gaze to the professor who had brought Nick and the others. I asked you to bring Zhang Weihe. Just one person. Taken aback by Theo's tone, Professor James stuttered before finally speaking up. Since we've apprehended the suspect, I thought it would be best to bring the entire first-year investigation team. Send out everyone except Zhang Weihe. Without even looking at James, Theo directed his attention to Rock, who was in charge. Nick and the others, excluding Zhang Weihe, couldn't help but shiver. Understood. All students except Zhang Weihe leave the interrogation room. But. Aisha glanced at Theo and Rock, hoping for some acknowledgement. Yet Theo didn't spare her a glance. There wasn't even a hint of contempt in his eyes. He stood there, arms crossed, solely focused on the glass window. No care for the people who had doubted him. Rock narrowed his eyes. Don't make me repeat myself. Fine. Reluctantly, the five, Nick, Peel, Aisha, Andrew, and Aisha, made their way towards the door of the interrogation room. Before leaving, Aisha cast a shaky glance at Theo, her eyes filled with uncertainty. He remained standing, arms still crossed. It was clear he had no intention of engaging in conversation with them. Theo's cold demeanor silenced them all. Once they exited the interrogation room, Theo turned his attention to Zhang Weihe. Zhang Weihe, could you help me decipher these letters? Okay. His demeanor remained cold, but his tone was polite. Zhang Weihe found his peculiar behavior somewhat perplexing, but she couldn't refuse his request. If anything, she could earn a favor from the mysterious man who had a trait similar to hers. After all, Zhang Weihe didn't have any particular attachment to the first-year investigation team. She promptly picked up a letter and began deciphering it. She quickly skimmed through the first 3 paragraphs. There was no need to read any further. The unconscious instructor, restrained within the interrogation room, was undoubtedly the culprit. But how did he know that I can decipher these coded letters? According to the professor who had approached her, Theo specifically requested her assistance. There's no way he could have discovered my identity. Zhang Weihe had meticulously concealed it, the fact that she was affiliated with Equilibrium, an assassination group involved in most major events across the continent, and that she was even the child of the group's leader. She had kept it all hidden, leaving no trace behind. After receiving an order to graduate from Elinia Academy's hero department with exceptional grades, she had not been in contact with the organization. Zhang Weihe glanced at Theo, then quickly averted her gaze. It's strange. Only a select few within the organization were aware of her true identity. Naturally, the Academy believed in her fabricated background as an individual hailing from the Eastern Empire. With that thought in mind, Zhang Weihe spoke up. There's no need to read further. The person in possession of this letter is the culprit. Numerous questions swirled within her mind, but she refrained from voicing them. There were many ears in the vicinity, orcs, and elf writhing in pain while clutching her thigh, and professors. Zhang Weihe gazed blankly at Theo. Whether he was feigning ignorance of her feelings or genuinely unaware, Zhang Weihe couldn't discern his emotions from his expression. I see. Thoroughness is commendable. Could you decipher the other letters as well? Theo nodded. Sure. Zhang Weihe swiftly deciphered the remaining letters. Nothing had changed. The instructor, tied up in the interrogation room, was undoubtedly the culprit. If she was 99% certain after reading one letter, she was now 99.9% certain after examining them all. I'll need to have a separate conversation with him to see how much he knows. If he proved to be a threat, she could simply eliminate him. Even at the tender age of 14, such a task was effortless for her who already possessed the skills of a high-level assassin. There's nothing out of the ordinary. The person who exchanged these letters is the culprit. With those words, Zhang Weihe glanced at Theo and Rock. Professor Rock, your instructions. Theo directed his gaze towards Rock. Theo's eyes seemed to hold a hidden smile. Look at this guy. A twisted smile appeared at the corner of Rock's mouth. From confirming the suspect to making the arrest, Theo had taken care of everything himself, but was leaving the follow-up in Rock's hands. Student Zhang Weihe, I won't inquire about how a mere student possesses knowledge of the ciphertext that even eludes the professors. You say the person who exchanged these letters is the culprit. Can you take responsibility for that? Yes. Understood. Rock nodded slowly. In any case, they needed to swiftly resolve the situation in the magical dungeon. Further delay would undoubtedly deal a severe blow to the hero department's reputation. Then, Jiangwei, I request that you transcribe the decrypted contents of this letter immediately. The interrogation of Francis concluded more swiftly than expected. Rock was a seasoned professional. To extract a confession directly from the culprit's mouth, Rock accomplished this without resorting to physical means. He slid the deciphered secret letter toward Francis and casually mentioned his girlfriend in the imperial capital, careful not to overstep any boundaries. Then, Francis lowered his head and confessed to the charges. As expected, one cannot become the head professor of the hero department without reason. Obtaining the confession took no more than 10 minutes. I didn't have much involvement in the process. In the meantime, I idly toyed with the amplification orb nestled in my pocket. With this, one mission was accomplished. Rock was meticulous, but he wasn't the type to take credit for another's work. There was a high likelihood that he would announce the capture of the culprit of the magical dungeon incident and the team responsible for it. However, if word spreads about my team's success, it will attract unwanted attention. From this point on, such incidents and accidents would occur with regularity. Drawing the focus of Turning White, the primary antagonists of this tale, would be a foolish move. Their threats were too severe given my current circumstances. Nick will also be targeted by Turning White after this incident. It would be best to inform the public that the first-year investigation team, excluding myself, apprehended the culprit. They would view it as a positive development. But I must carefully consider the pros and cons. They would carry the burden of guilt for almost apprehending an innocent individual. Even Andrew, who had fallen under Turning White's influence in the original story, possessed an inherently good nature. Even if the future had changed, his essence would have remained the same. Having summoned only Jiangwei, the others gathered around and anxiously observed me. What they want most is for me to keep my mouth shut. For a hero, reputation was just as important as abilities. Being labeled as suspects who falsely accused an innocent person during their school days would haunt them for life. It's understandable. My sudden change in behavior is suspicious. But their accusation is still an accusation. Even if they are just kids in their mid-teens, even if they had no ill intentions, they must face the consequences of their actions. Of course, I had no intention of directly punishing them. At the time, I was filled with anger, but now I'm completely rational. Well, it's not like they abandoned me in a dungeon and ran away. Punishing them would only provide temporary satisfaction, with no long-term benefit. The chances are extremely slim, but they might become desperate enough to do something drastic. How should I handle this? I didn't utter a word to the faculty investigation team or my own team about Nick and the others pointing me out as a suspect. I also told both the faculty investigation team and my team not to mention who was responsible for apprehending the culprit. No one seemed to object. Instead, they just gave me a subtle glance. What kind of price should I demand? Let's give it more thought. With that in mind, I led my team out of the interrogation room. Chapter ends. Ch51 Poker Face 2. The atmosphere outside the interrogation room was quiet. I surveyed my surroundings. Apart from a few students engaged in sports like football and baseball, there was no one else in sight. Most of them must be in the dormitory or training grounds. Though the hero department was on a break, the school cafeteria remained open. Our team decided to have a late lunch at the student cafeteria. However, there was one crucial point that needed clarification. Do not address me as captain. Please use my name instead. I wanted to prevent any unintended slips. If other students overheard the word captain, they would surely find it odd. It needed to be announced that the individual responsible for the magic dungeon incident had been apprehended by the first-year investigation team, led by Nick. As for me, it was a shame to miss an opportunity to gain reputation points. However, it wasn't as important as my life. If I became a target of Turning White at this stage, there was a 100% chance I would die. Nick has to be my shield. But the worst-case scenario would be Nick's investigation team panicking and doing something drastic. My utmost priority was to graduate from the hero department with outstanding grades, not to undermine their efforts. Regardless, the members of the first-year investigation team were the ones who would confront the upcoming threats to the academy. I glanced at my teammates. I want to apologize once more. What happened today should not be discussed anywhere. Conceal it completely. Naturally, no one will acknowledge our accomplishments either. I'm sorry that I can't give you anything in return for trusting and following me. But I promise you this, I will repay this debt someday. Even with a parched throat, I delivered my words with composure. Noctur looked at me thoughtfully. However, Theo, I apologize, but I can't disclose the reason. No, rather, are you alright? You appear quite distressed. Frankly speaking, you must have faced the most difficulties. The other orcs nodded in agreement. Are they not even going to ask why? Blind fools. They should at least be outraged. No, it's nothing. After taking a moment to catch my breath, I searched for the right words. I couldn't tell them that I didn't want to draw attention from turning white. All I can say is that it's a sacrifice for the team. Thank you, everyone. After uttering those words, I turned my gaze and added, but I will repay this debt as long as I draw breath. It was a day that truly fulfilled our warrior spirits, wasn't it, my brothers? Noctur, baring his fangs, directed his gaze towards the orcs. Indeed, it was a day that set our blood ablaze after a long time. Let us know if you need our help again. Although our skin and appearance are different, we are comrades now, aren't we? They all agreed. I held onto the shoulder of Sienna, who was leaning on Amy and letting out intermittent groans. Sienna. Ugh, Huyuk. I attempted to use magic nullification once more, but it seemed that the aftereffects lingered. I owed Sienna a great deal, but there was nothing more I could do here. Amy, take her back to the dormitory. Yes, young master. Amy bowed her head. I continued speaking. And on your way, stop by the alchemy shop, purchase some fatigue recovery potions, and administer them to her. Leave it to me, young master. Do you have any other orders? No, none. Then I'll leave immediately. All right. Take care, Amy. See you later. Amy swiftly disappeared, carrying Sienna with her. I hope it wasn't anything serious. Though I felt uneasy, now that the mission was complete, it seemed fitting to have a meal with the orcs. I made my way to the student cafeteria alongside the orcs. Meanwhile, what should I do about Neek and the others? I won't go to them first. Not that I plan to, but if the victim approaches first, the perpetrators might think, oh, this guy has already forgiven me. Most people do. It's not that Neek and his group are malicious. It's just how most humans think. So I won't approach them. Even if I were to receive an apology, it must be genuine. I don't want it if they apologize, I'll accept a sincere apology that comes from the heart. But I don't want them to prostrate themselves before me. We'll be together until we graduate from the academy. It would be wise to impart some character development while we're at it. I've thought it over carefully. They didn't deceive me. It was merely the ignorant behavior of young sheep with narrow perspectives. So, if they offer a sincere apology, I'll accept it. It's not easy for someone to change their opinion once they have voiced it. It's rare to find someone who acknowledges their own mistakes and regrets them. In a way, it's a test I'm presenting to them. Even if I don't get anything from them right away, having the top-named characters owe me a debt could be quite useful. 1 orc meal. Same as my friends. Upon arriving at the cafeteria, I ordered the orc meal. Calling the orcs my friends in front of a staff member seemed to trigger Twisted Noble's dignity. A tingling shock ran through me, but I welcomed it with joy. The happiness of no longer being alone in this world far outweighed it. After a satisfying meal, the orcs and I left the student cafeteria. I can still feel the heat of battle coursing through my body. You too? Oh, me too. Let's go to the training ground. I thought of a new technique from the movements of the suspect. Oops, I shouldn't say that. Anyway, I thought of something new. We headed to the Hero Department training grounds. After an intense training session, I was about to return to the dormitory. Theo. 3 men appeared before me. Neek, Andrew, and Aisha. How long have they been waiting? Their intentions were obvious. However, I didn't let it show and regarded them with my usual impassive gaze. What is it? We have something to discuss. Can we talk? Neek asked tentatively, while Andrew and Aisha kept their eyes lowered, wearing serious expressions. Let's find a more secluded spot. There were too many prying eyes around. If Neek were to make a scene in the middle of the academy, it would draw attention. It would attract the attention of onlookers, and they might be able to deduce that I was the one who resolved the magic dungeon incident. That needed to be avoided. A spark of life returned to the trio's eyes. All right. Anywhere is fine. Where shall we go? Did they already know I would forgive them? Their sins were too grave for that. The room we visited this morning. Let's go there. All right. Neek, Andrew, and Aisha responded hesitantly. The exclusive dormitory of the Hero Department. We arrived at Neek's room. Immediately, Neek lowered his head deeply. As the leader of the investigation team, I failed to exercise caution. I should have never let it happen. I apologize on behalf of everyone. I can't even lift my head in shame. I trained my body to become a hero, but my mind remained as immature as a child. I'm truly sorry. I apologize and will atone. I thought you might be capable of it. Please forgive my disgraceful self. Andrew and Aisha also bowed deeply. It seems sincere. The students of the Hero Department are known for their pride, and the top students are even more so. Neek was a bit of a pushover, and Aisha was a simple-minded boy who disliked complicated matters. But, Andrew, was he always this kind of person? He detested bowing to others, second only to Peel. Anyway, I couldn't let them off the hook with just an apology. I need to make it clear. Alright, I will accept your apologies. Really? The trio's eyes brightened. But that doesn't mean I forgive you. If I hadn't caught the real culprit, what would have happened? I would have undoubtedly suffered. Think about it from my perspective. I'm sorry. Even a 3-year-old can say sorry. What's important is action. Negative feelings can change with consistent effort. What can we do to put this behind us, Theo? Neek was the first to inquire, followed by Andrew and Aisha, who appeared on the verge of tears. Indeed, I share a certain understanding with Neek. You should reflect upon that yourselves. Do you think I am foolish enough to divulge my desires up front? It's best to receive a proposal from them first. Think carefully, kids. Aisha returned from the interrogation room and immediately retreated to her own chamber, trembling. I never thought Theo would catch the culprit behind the magic dungeon incident. What awaits her now? Her mind swirled with confusion and fear. Me, becoming the head of the Waldorf family? What a joke. It was impossible. Theo must have suspected her intentions from the very beginning, to claim the position of family head. His swift capture of the culprit serves as proof of his abilities. Even if she became the head, the stigma of trying to frame an innocent student would haunt her for life. Yet, such realistic thoughts dissipated swiftly. Soon, the emotions she had suppressed in her heart took over. A multitude of moments spent with Theo in a short span flooded her mind. Their venture into the eastern forest, where he rescued her just before she collapsed. The times they attended club gatherings together. She remembered when he saved her life during the magic dungeon incident. Once again, she found herself indebted to him. Now, those happy memories seemed to vanish like a mirage. It was all over. The feelings of insecurity and inferiority toward him, lurking in a corner of her heart, had destroyed everything. Click, click. Aisha nibbled at her meticulously manicured nails. It was a habit she developed in childhood, a manifestation of her anxiety. No, I can't. I can't. She hadn't succumbed to this habit in over 3 years, but now, even rationality couldn't quell it. Just as Aisha had bitten all the nails on one hand. Knock, knock, knock. The sound of a knock reverberated. Chapter ends. Ch 52 Poker Face, 3. A soft knock startled Aisha, making her jump up from her seat. Who could it be? She was afraid that someone might see her ugly appearance and her equally ugly heart. Who's there? Aisha whispered softly towards the door. It's me, Aisha. Andrew's voice came from the other side. With caution, Aisha opened the door to find Neek, Andrew, and his child waiting outside. You didn't even lock the door. Andrew couldn't finish his sentence. Aisha's usual well-groomed appearance was nowhere to be found. Her hair was a mess, as if she'd been tearing at it, and her once moisturized skin was dry and rough. It seemed like she had aged 10 years in just a few hours. Suddenly, Andrew snapped back to reality. Are you okay? Why yes, I'm okay, Aisha answered, though her appearance suggested otherwise. Her eyes, wide like those of a terrified child, trembled uncontrollably, and her body shook. Aisha, we just apologized to Theo. He's still here. Maybe you should go see him too. I see. Aisha glanced at Neek, Andrew, and his child with trembling eyes. But their expressions were quite gloomy, considering they had just apologized. Did they not receive forgiveness? Aisha's mind was struck with a thought, like a bolt of lightning. She couldn't ask if they were forgiven or not. Those three had gone to apologize directly, not just thinking about it, but taking action. In comparison, she was too pathetic. While they were apologizing to Theo, she had been huddled in a corner of her room, trembling with fear and anxiety. Aisha slapped her cheeks, an action she would never do in front of others under normal circumstances. But right now, she had no room to worry about others' gazes. Even if I'm not forgiven, I have to beg. I can't run away. I'm a member of the Waldorf family, and I want to become a hero. With this newfound resolve, Aisha gazed at the three individuals, her eyes still trembling. Thank you. He's probably in Neek's room. Go quickly. Andrew's discomfort was evident as he shifted his gaze toward Aisha, and his child followed suit. I understand. Trembling, Aisha mustered the courage to take one step after another. She made her way toward the room where Theo was likely to be. The door creaked open. Nervously, Aisha entered the room. Her anxious, trembling eyes met mine. She's frightened. Even without observer's eye, I could sense it. Perhaps it was her pale complexion and reddened eyes, resembling a rabbit captured by a hunter. I looked at her without saying a word, putting more strength into my gaze than usual while sitting in my chair. Honestly, I didn't feel much sympathy for her. Out of the 6 people, Aisha was the one who had betrayed me the most. After falling into this world, I thought I had interacted with her quite a bit, following Noctur and Irene. But in truth, it wasn't just Peel who took the lead. Aisha was equally involved. She hesitantly approached me. Aisha's lips quivered several times as if she was struggling to find the right words to say. Yet, I maintained a calm expression, simply observing her. After a while, I am sorry. Thump. Aisha knelt before me. I am sorry, Theo. I should never have done something so terrible. Please forgive me. Her head lowered, and tears streamed down her face. Well, what a surprise. I hadn't expected her to kneel. Her action caught me off guard more than I had anticipated. If it weren't for Twisted Noble's dignity, I might have lost my composure. But regardless, she knelt. How humiliated Aisha must feel in this moment. In this world, kneeling carried significant meaning. It signified an unconditional acceptance of the other person's judgment. In the original story, such situations were rare. Most villains would rather die than kneel, offering their heads instead. How humiliating it must be. Even though Aisha is a distant relative, she is still a member of the Waldorf family. Undoubtedly, she is a noble. And as the hope of her distant family, Aisha had received a thorough noble education from a young age, making her even more refined than most nobles. But Aisha was a cunning girl. Do you understand the implications of your actions? I thought she might kneel just to avoid a crisis. Strangers might tell me that I'm being too cruel to a child and call me heartless. I don't care. This part needs to be addressed clearly. Aisha lifted her head and met my gaze. Yes. What does it mean? Aisha bit her pink lips. Go ahead, punish me as much as you want. But please forget about what transpired this morning. I lack any semblance of shame, but I simply want to graduate from the academy in peace. Rather than responding, I continued to stare into Aisha's eyes. Her trembling gaze met mine. She's genuine. Punish her as much as I wanted? It was a better bargain than I had anticipated. Aisha was a promising named character destined to become the head of the Waldorf family one day. Currently, she was also the idol of Elinia Academy. Her image is good, she's skilled in maintaining a public image, and she has connections in various places. Even if I didn't immediately exact punishment and merely cleared her debt, she would still prove incredibly useful. There were countless ways to utilize someone like Aisha. In some respects, she was even more valuable than Neek. Alright, are you forgiving me? A glimmer of hope appeared in Aisha's eyes. No. I curved my lips into a smile. So, what am I supposed to do? What do you take me for? There will be no punishment for you. It's a waste of time and emotions. Ha, hoo-ha. Aisha lowered her head, tears streaming down her face. I kept my silence. Instead, try to be helpful to me. I believe that with hard work, even negative emotions can be transformed into positive ones. I prefer action over 100 words. Aisha, her eyes reddened, looked up at me. I'll try, really. I'll prove myself through my actions. Please, believe in me. With that, she bowed her head once more, sobbing. I'll be keeping an eye on you. With those words, I fell silent, gazing down at Aisha, who continued to sob. Sigh, what should I do now? I thought about how to utilize Aisha. There were too many possibilities, none of them clear. I remembered. There was a place to put Aisha to use soon. She and I could form a mutually beneficial relationship. For now, I suppose I've done enough. Pushing her further might lead her to make extreme choices. That would be my loss entirely. Get up. Extending my hand to Aisha, still on her knees and weeping. Yes? Aisha lifted her tear-filled eyes to meet mine. My arm hurts. Yes. Aisha grasped my hand and promptly stood up. She must have been genuinely frightened. All her fingernails were bitten down. In the original story, Aisha had the habit of biting her nails when she felt anxious. I managed to get Aisha indebted to me as well. Now, only Peel remains, but having Neek and Aisha come forward is already more than I expected. If Peel fails to offer an apology like the others, I intend to treat her as inconsequential. And Jang Woo-hee, well, doesn't feel a strong connection to the academy or anywhere else. At this point, she doesn't have anyone she cares about. She only joined the investigation team to obtain information. She wouldn't feel guilt or unease from unfairly accusing me. Based on the words and actions of the four, Neek, Andrew, Ishild, and Aisha, it seems Jang Woo-hee hasn't divulged any additional information to others, including the fact that she assisted me with the code decryption. For now, I'll leave Jang Woo-hee be. She doesn't hesitate to kill. There's a high probability that I'll needlessly provoke her and put myself in danger. But she will contact me soon. After all, I made it clear that I am aware of her true identity. Even a fool would comprehend that. Meanwhile, Aisha. When will she release my hand? It's time to let go. Yes. Aisha hurriedly released my hand. In any case, I have acquired reliable allies who will wholeheartedly support my endeavors. As for Peel, I'm curious about her next move. Chapter ends. Ch53 Poker Face 4. In the game Karen Xena Chronicles, there are numerous beings with power beyond measure, such as demons, demon kings, and ancient dragons, capable of bringing destruction to the continent. Among them, the most well-known entity is the demon. The archdemon, a demon among demons, is the term used to refer to a demon with power second only to the demon king in the demon realm. As the title suggests, archdemons are incredibly powerful. Only a select few top-tier heroes in the mortal realm can face an archdemon. However, this is only true in the mortal realm. There are barely any beings in the demon realm that can challenge an archdemon. If one had to choose, it would be the ancient dragons with their vast age. The demon king hasn't shown himself for hundreds of years. As a result, in the mortal realm the continent of Karen Xen archdemons have become the embodiment of fear. This overwhelming fear often turns them into objects of worship. In most countries, demon worship is a major crime. If discovered, not only the worshipper but their entire family will be exterminated. Despite such severe punishment, it's impossible to stop everyone from engaging in demon worship. Many people, including dark wizards and those who are desperate, end up worshipping demons. Naturally, urban legends about contracts with archdemons are widespread. And occasionally, these legends turn out to be true. There was a case where a 70-year-old man single-handedly faced the Empire's royal knights. A 10-year-old human child assassinated a high-ranking hero. A low-ranking bureaucrat manipulated an entire kingdom using an archdemon's charm. In this way, those who form contracts with archdemons gain unnatural strength. Their actions sometimes put the entire continent at risk. For over a century, no archdemon contractors have appeared in the modern world. To be precise, they are eliminated as soon as they appear, when their power is weakest. As archdemons gradually consume a contractor's personality, changes become apparent in their character and appearance. The most reliable way to identify a contractor is to examine their naked body. A mark of the corresponding demon appears somewhere on the contractor's body. After leaving Nick's room, I went to meet Rock. He was struggling with paperwork, as post-incident handling was not easy. So, you want me to announce that the first-year investigation team, not your team, apprehended the culprit behind the magic dungeon incident? Yes, please. There might be witnesses, so I'd appreciate it if you could keep a close eye on those who were close by. I responded calmly. Before overpowering Francis, I had sent Amy to scout the area, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. There would likely be no witnesses. Well, all right. Most of the staff are out anyway, so there can't be more than a handful of witnesses. Rock said that and added with a meaningful smile. Even so, the culprit was caught in less than half a day. As the representative of the investigation team, I'd like to offer some kind of reward. Tell me what you want, and I'll try to accommodate within reason. I thought for a moment. What do you want? Rock narrowed his eyes. I quickly racked my brain. What should I ask for? However, considering Rock's personality, I shouldn't ask for anything too big. Moreover, I shouldn't ask for anything too conspicuous. For example, asking for a vacation would be out of the question. He would grant it, but it would only count as attendance and not help my grades. It would also have a negative impact on my reputation. More importantly, taking a vacation during the semester at Elinia Academy is very rare. It would stand out too much. Then, it's this. I opened my mouth. During the next practical evaluation, Relic Exploration, please let my team be the first to enter the dungeon. Rock pondered for a moment. I looked at him with a neutral expression. He's just pretending to think. This should be more than enough for him to grant. The Hero Department's lectures are divided into a total of 16 weeks per semester. This week is a break, but it's the 6th week. Next week, the 7th week, is the Relic Exploration. The task is simple. Just enter the dungeon assigned by the instructor and bring out the relic model they placed inside. But of course, an incident will occur. It's important to note that there's special treasure hidden inside the dungeon. It's not a hidden piece, but a treasure set within the story. It didn't help much when clearing the current route, Spearmaster, so many users didn't even care. However, it's quite useful for Neek, the overpowered character and protagonist, and for me. Why wouldn't I take it if it's of no use to Neek, the Spearmaster? On top of that, I've obtained the high-level magic artifact, Amplification Orb, from Francis. If I use it with the treasure inside the relic, it'll become a great power. Rock finished contemplating and nodded. All right. During the next practical evaluation, Theo, I'll make sure your team has priority to enter the dungeon first. As I expected, Rock granted my request. Thank you. I nodded gratefully, in a good mood. After finishing my conversation with Rock, I immediately returned to the dormitory. I had thought that the huge orc meal I had earlier for lunch would keep me full for days, but I was mistaken. I was already hungry again. Has my constitution changed? Anyway, I should ask Amy for something to eat. Hearing my footsteps, Amy was already waiting for me. Sigh, I told her not to wait, but I've half given up on that. Amy bowed her head as she saw me. You've arrived, young master. You've had a tough day today. You had the hardest time, Amy. If it weren't for you, things would have been much more troublesome. You're too kind, young master. A faint smile appeared on Amy's lips. Anyway, did you take Sienna back safely? Yes, young master. After laying her down in bed, I left once she fell asleep. Oh, and also, Amy paused for a moment. What is it? I have something to give you, young master. Please wait just a moment. Amy entered her room and soon returned with a small wooden box the size of a notebook. She handed it to me. Please accept this, young master. I took the wooden box from Amy and opened the lid. Inside were 10 small, colorful glass bottles. Lesser spirit repellent, grade, rare, upon use, blocks the approach of all lesser spirits for 24 hours. View details. Lesser spirit repellent. Of course, I was familiar with this item. It's quite rare. The maker of this item is in Equilibrium. She noticed the spirit attached to me. It appears Amy had talked to Equilibrium about my recent situation. Pretending not to know, I asked, "What's this?" "It's a medicinal tonic made by my family. I prepared it, thinking it might help with your safety, young master." I see. Was it a white lie with good intentions? Amy's family, the Watsons, were wiped out when she was young. There was a hint of sadness in Amy's eyes. Thank you, I'll make sure to use it. Oh, and please prepare some food. I'm hungry. Understood, young master. I'll prepare it right away. Amy went downstairs. Once I was in my room, I sprayed the lesser spirit repellent on my clothes. Of course, I could take it orally, but it felt repulsive. Soon, a faint scent rose from my clothes, somewhat similar to perfume. Ugh, if I had eaten it, I would have definitely thrown up. Anyway, thank you. Though it's for repelling lesser spirits, it should block most of the spirits Sienna uses. She wouldn't summon intermediate level or higher spirits just to stalk me, after all. In the spacious room of the Hero Department's exclusive dormitory, Peel stood by the open window, gazing outside. Whenever she felt frustrated, she had a habit of staring out the window for a long time. I never expected the culprit to be caught in just half a day. Peel was well aware that the four, Nick, Andrew, Aisha, and Aisha, had apologized to Theo. The criminal, who had not left any clues even after a thorough investigation by the faculty, was caught so quickly. How did he catch them so quickly? This only deepened her suspicion of Theo. He was too out of place. Even the legendary heroes that one would only hear about in fairy tales were not at this level. Of course, I can apologize. I can even bow my head. However, Peel decided not to do so. But he had already left a significant mark in a corner of her heart. I must verify it for sure. Peel firmly resolved herself. I have to see the contract with the Great Demon, the mark. If he really did make a contract with the Great Demon, she would save him, even if it meant dirtying her own hands, before the world scorned him. Academy expulsion? Disgrace after becoming a hero? Those would be painful but trivial matters for his sake. That was the only way she could repay him, the one who had given her an epiphany. Of course, she hoped it wasn't true, but considering his transformation, the possibility was quite high. I'll make sure it never happens again. Demons like that should never come into this world. Chapter ends. Ch 54 Bad Habits 1. The next day, morning. Nowadays, I wake up on my own, even before Amy comes to get me. I don't want to go to school today since there are no classes. However, at this point, only I know that there won't be any classes this week. If I don't attend, other students will think it's strange. I don't want to stick out like a sore thumb, although it's impossible to hide that I've changed. I quickly headed to the hero department. There are no classes this week. You don't have to come to school from tomorrow. Rest well this week and see you next week. As soon as Rock's words ended, I left the classroom. Sienna hasn't come to school. At this point, it doesn't seem like she's faking it. I should check on her later to make sure everything's okay. With that thought, I boarded the carriage. Clatter, clatter. Let's head to the night department first. I should be able to observe the second period classes. I've seen the skills of most night department students, but I want to test something. Sitting in the back seat on the right diagonal side of the carriage, I recalled last night. Amplification Orb, the high-ranking artifact I obtained from Francis. In the original story, it was only used to amplify Francis's debuff magic, but as expected from a high-ranking artifact, it had other uses too. This item can amplify not only magic but also traits. It can only be applied to one trait, but that alone is incredible. It can turn an expert-level trait into a master-level trait. Of course, I don't have any expert-level traits yet. The traits I currently possess are Descendant of the Hero, Twisted Noble's Dignity, Magic Nullification, Observer's Eye, and Sword Beginner, totaling 5. It's a significant improvement to have a beginner-level trait amplified to a user-level trait in one go. I initially planned to use it on the treasure I'd obtain during next week's Relic exploration. However, last night, while practicing swordsmanship in my room with the amplification orb on me, please select the trait you wish to strengthen. A sudden message appeared. Descendant of the Hero is a bloodline trait and cannot be strengthened, but the other 4 traits could be. So currently, I've amplified Sword Beginner to Sword User. Moreover, I can switch to another trait whenever necessary. In all roots of the original story, Nick, like a fool, handed over such a precious item to the academy without ever experimenting with it. I couldn't help but smile. What happens if I apply it to master-level traits like Sword Master or Weapon Master? Though it's doubtful I'll ever obtain them in my lifetime, but who knows? Immersed in pleasant thoughts, I headed towards the night department classroom. It was break time, and the lively chatter of students could be heard outside the classroom. Creak. The students' gazes focused on me. Ignoring those now familiar stares, I stood by the back door and surveyed the area. Where is she? There she is. I walked straight over to Irene, who was sitting in the middle row of the classroom. Irene's eyes widened. Nice to see you, Irene. May I sit beside you? Sure. I sat down next to Irene. Nina, who was also sitting beside Irene, looked at me. What happened yesterday? I heard there was no class for the hero department. I had some matters to take care of yesterday. I see. Well, I'm glad you made it today. Irene was upset all day yesterday, but I shouldn't say anything. Irene's face turned red as she covered Mina's mouth with her white hand. Stop it, Mina. Okay. I shouldn't have said that on such a good day. Mina smiled mischievously. Why is she like that? People's moods can change 100 times a day. Irene doesn't have a trait like my Twisted Noble's Dignity, so her feelings are all over her face. Irene looked at me again. Anyway, are you alone today? Her expression was somewhat ambiguous. Yeah. Should I have brought someone? No. You did well. From now on, try to come alone whenever possible, okay? It's not like I can control that. I never had anyone to come with in the first place. It was Sienna who decided to tag along. While thinking about that, Irene gave me a sharp look. Why aren't you answering? I'll try my best. We continued talking until the lecture began. The front door opened, and a professor entered. It's a professor from the night department I've seen before. But someone else followed them in. It was Mari. Why is she here? She usually dresses casually in the hero department, but today she's fully dressed up. Today, we have a guest lecture from the hero department's Professor Mari Jane. Let's welcome her with a round of applause. Clap, 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 clap. The sound of students clapping. I joined in the applause. Mari greeted everyone with a smile. Hello, Night Department students. I'm Mari Jane, and I teach classes like Introduction to Hero Studies in the Hero Department. I look forward to working with you all today. Mari stood at the podium and slowly scanned the students. Then her eyes met mine. Mari smiled subtly. Seeing a familiar face, I think I can do this without getting nervous. Now, let's start the special lecture. There wasn't much to the guest lecture. It was just the usual stories about how the Hero Department operates and how hard its students work. So, insight and judgment are even more important for heroes than raw power. In emergency situations, the lives of many depend on the choices made by the leading hero. Theo, who's attending the lecture today, excels in that aspect. Mari looked at me as she spoke, and all the students' gazes fixed on me. Ah, damn it. Luckily, I had grown accustomed to those stares, and there was no need to panic thanks to Twisted Noble's dignity. Theo once said during a Hero Department lecture, if there's a trusted leader, team members don't need to worry about anything else. They simply need to believe in the leader's judgment and act accordingly. I felt that this is what a modern-day hero should be like after hearing that answer. Mari continued to speak, whether I liked it or not. Ah, please stop. Theo, did you really say that? Irene whispered in a soft voice. I wanted to crawl into a hole. Instead of answering, I bowed my head. Lunchtime arrived. I headed to the student cafeteria with Irene and Mina. The menu is certainly different from the Hero Departments. When I had come here before, I couldn't focus because of Sienna clinging to me. Now, I could see everything clearly. I glanced at the menu and asked Irene, which menu item is delicious? Well, what do you usually like? Meat, of course. I see. When you were younger, you didn't seem to like meat that much. Anyway, the popular dishes these days are pork cutlet set and dompa pork. They're commonly eaten in the Eastern Empire. I see. This game pays attention to such unnecessary details. In the original game, the Eastern Empire was a nation that incorporated elements of Korean, Chinese, and Japanese cultures. Thinking about it made me crave Korean soup, but I couldn't find it on the menu. I checked twice, even 3 times. Damn, this is a Korean game. Well, it can't be helped. I'll have the pork cutlet set. Ha! Theo, have you eaten Eastern Empire food before? Why not just get the regular meat set? A sense of challenge is an essential virtue for a hero. I'm sorry for lying, Irene. The truth is, I ate a lot of it before possessing this body. We moved to a table with our food, and I sliced a piece of pork cutlet. Surprisingly, it was quite good, despite its appearance. It had a taste reminiscent of the homeland. While eating the pork cutlet, I looked at Irene and Mina's food. Irene had meatball pasta and bread, while Mina had carbonara pasta and bread. The noodles were dry and lacked the usual sheen, as expected of cafeteria food. Yum! Irene took a bite of a meatball. But would that be enough for her? In the original game, she had a large appetite despite her size. Feeling my gaze, Irene asked me with a puzzled expression, "Do you want some?" "No, I'm good." The memory of Sienna force-feeding me surfaced. Ugh, alright then. Irene pouted and resumed eating. Chapter ends. Ch 55, Bad Habits, 2. As they were finishing lunch, Mina, who had been staring at Theo and Irene, spoke up. By the way, you two haven't gone on a date yet? PFF-. Irene was startled and covered her mouth. Theo asked back in confusion. Huh? What do you mean? He couldn't understand. What on earth was she talking about? Irene does say I should show my face more often. I don't think she dislikes me, but isn't dating out of the question? Of course, Theo had grown more comfortable with Irene, but he didn't think they were close enough to go on a date. Of course, if she wanted to, he wouldn't refuse. But how do you go on a date? He had never been on one, he was too busy trying to survive. What are you talking about, Mina? Irene, her face redder than the red meatball pasta she was eating, shouted. Just curious. It's rare for engaged couples to attend the same academy. I thought you guys might be going on dates, but I guess not. That's interesting. If it were me, I'd go on one every day. Mina tilted her head, looking puzzled. Is that so? Theo briefly pondered. He couldn't tell if Irene liked or disliked the idea. Judging from Mina's words, it seemed like going on dates wouldn't be a problem. Of course, other students have blind dates and stuff, but that had nothing to do with him. In modern times, friends visiting each other's homes could be considered a date. In the original story, Pushover Neek had all sorts of relationships with named characters, but they were ambiguous at most. Not once was there a mention of a date. What was allowed? He had often visited the training ground with Irene. Was that considered a date? He couldn't tell where the line was drawn. What is considered a date, Mina? Wow. Mina looked at Theo as if he were a rare species. Are you joking? No. At Theo's serious answer, Mina's mind went blank. When you put two real dating idiots together, this happens. Sigh, how can this happen when they're both perfectly healthy? Even 10-year-old kids in the neighborhood are better than them. Mina sighed and opened her mouth. Going out together to eat something delicious, training together, studying together, all of it can be considered a date. Is that so? Theo scratched his chin. Don't agree with that. Training and stuff together. That's not a date. Irene raised her voice with a squeak. Mina smirked at her somewhat childish demeanor. What do you think a date is, Irene? Well, what? Irene hesitantly spoke. Getting dressed up nicely, and going to a wonderful place with someone you love, or like. Irene trailed off. She's like a character from a fairy tale. This won't do. I expected it from Irene, but Theo is clueless too. I need to give these love novices a push. Mina smiled inwardly. Exactly, Irene. That's what a date is. But what I'm curious about is, if the two of you have ever been on a date. Well, Irene's face turned from red to pale. Mina cried internally. I can't believe how frustrating this is. Still, Mina didn't give up. These two are hopeless if I leave them alone. At this rate, they might not even kiss before graduating from the academy. Mina glanced at Theo. He seemed better than Irene, at least. Ugh, he's still an idiot. Their eyes met, but Theo still didn't say anything. He should have gotten the hint by now. I have no choice. Mina resorted to a drastic measure. She mouthed the words without making a sound. Ask her out. If he doesn't understand after all this, I give up. As Mina wallowed in self-pity, Theo finally spoke up. I haven't been on a date like in the way Irene described. Mina and Irene's faces rapidly soured. But at his next words, Mina silently rejoiced. Let's go on a date, Irene. When are you free? Yes. Mina sent out a quiet cheer. Irene, her eyes wide, didn't know how to react. I'm free any day this week. I'll adjust to your schedule, Irene. I'm free anytime too. Alright, then. Excuse me for a moment. I'll be right back. With that, Theo rose from his seat and walked out with an elegant stride. Did they just fight? Seems so. What did Irene say? Handsome guys do have their charm. Just the other day, he was hanging out with the elf princess. They were inseparable. What do we do? Poor Irene. Many students in the cafeteria murmured as they watched his retreating figure. Regardless, Irene's bewildered expression disappeared, and she finally broke into a giddy smile. No one's around. I tugged on the communication crystal string. Yes, young master. Did you call? Amy's voice reached me through the crystal, much clearer than before, with hardly any noise. This proved that she was close, probably within the academy. I guess she's not wandering off somewhere for equilibrium. I have a favor to ask, Amy. Please, go ahead. Reserve a table at a nearby fancy restaurant for tomorrow, between 6 and 7 p.m. Understood, young master. Will you be dining alone? 4-2. Understood. I'll check the options and contact you again. Is there anything else you need? Nothing. I'll leave it to you. I'll do my best, young master. Click. I ended the call and returned to the cafeteria. Irene, who looked somewhat dazed, and Mina, looking at me suspiciously, were there. Oh, what happened? Irene. I interrupted Mina and called Irene's name. Why yes? Would you like to have dinner at a restaurant tomorrow? Irene stared at me with a puzzled expression. After a moment. Yes. I'd love to. With her cheeks blushing, she smiled brightly. After lunch, it was time for practical duels. I requested duel, hero department. I was here first. And it's not hero department, it's Theo. Don't you even know the name of the person you're challenging? What nonsense. I've been waiting to hit that guy from behind since this morning. And does the name matter? Many students had gathered in front of Theo. Their eyes were all burning with determination. I can't forgive him. That parasitic bastard. I'm still single, and he turns everything upside down every time he appears. Their target was none other than Theo. They couldn't forgive him for walking around with the elf princess and Irene by his sides. For the crime of toying with beauties, accept your punishment. As Theo wondered who to face first. Everyone, step back for a moment. A woman with a thick, strong voice spoke up. Her well-developed, coppery muscles stood out more than most men's. It was Julia, the female barbarian and the top-ranked first-year student in the night department. The students immediately cleared a path. That's right, Julia is a sure bet. Then they gazed at her with twinkling eyes. There was no one here who didn't know of Julia's strength. She would surely bring humiliation to that parasitic scum. Julia stood in front of Theo. Let's have a match, Theo. As Theo remained silent, Julia added, I've always wanted to have a blood battle with a man who emits such powerful energy as you. Let's fight. She's a bad match. I'll be at a disadvantage against her. Contrary to his inner thoughts, Theo looked at Julia with calm eyes. How do I get out of this? Theo spoke up. Why? Julia smiled brightly. After receiving your help last week, I've looked into you quite a bit. In the process, I heard an interesting rumor. Even the orcs, who worship strength, call you a true warrior. Since then, I couldn't contain my excitement. Is that answer enough? Those damn orcs. Wow dash. The students were caught in a frenzy of enthusiasm. They stopped their own duels, gathered around Theo and Julia, and cheered her on. Julia! 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 Wow dash! Julia, win! The treasure of the night department. A true warrior. Today, we're rooting for you, Julia. Please, crush that guy's face. These bastards. Chapter ends. Ch 56 Bad Habits 3. In this situation, there was no way to avoid a duel with Julia. If I were to refuse to duel in such a heated atmosphere, my reputation would take a nosedive. But how can I win against her? I stole a glance at Julia. Her height was roughly around 5'9". She was slightly shorter than me, but there was hardly any difference in our builds. In fact, it felt as if I were the one at a disadvantage. Her thighs were undoubtedly thicker than mine, and her quads, shoulders, and arm muscles were all more developed. Name, Julia Metz. Gender, female. Age, 18. Race, human. Affiliation, Elenia Academy. Night Department / Dry Plains Tribe. Strength, 11. Stamina, 11. Mana, 7. Tenacity, 10. Traits, Barbarian Warrior. Passive effect / inherent ability, view details. Weapon Master, passive effect, view details. Spear Expert, passive effect, view details. Throwing Expert, passive effect, view details. Plus 5 more traits. This seems impossible. At this point, Julia is the only one in the Knights Department with a master level trait. She also has several other useful traits. The wall was too high. I've gotten stronger recently, but this would be difficult. Even if Julia couldn't contend with the top 10 in the hero department, her strength alone could place her in the top 30. Hey, doesn't he seem weak? The hero department isn't all that impressive. As expected from Julia. I've never seen a good-looking guy who's also strong. Whispers and jeers echoed from the Knight Department students, huddled together in excited anticipation. Irene glanced at me with a worried expression. I've heard your rank in the hero department is 181st. That's quite low for a man who supposedly has the qualities of a hero, Julia said. Instead of her primary weapon, the spear, Julia held a rapier. However, I know that heroes usually specialize in either martial or scholarly pursuits. You must be more focused on the latter. I don't like one-sided fights or humiliating my opponents, so I'll use the sword instead. How about that? Her biceps flexed as she spoke. Of course, I'd faced more opponents with swords than any other weapon, but her words didn't bring me much comfort. The gap between Julia and me was just too great. Don't hold back. Fight with all your strength, I said. If I were to lose to her wielding a spear, it would be somewhat acceptable, but losing to her holding a rapier would be a complete loss. No, I'm actually quite good with a sword too. Let's see. I think I could take down everyone here within 30 seconds, Julia shrugged, causing the students who met her gaze to flinch. Even Irene shot her a frosty look. Judging by their reactions, her claim was likely true. If that's what you wish, so be it. Well, at least I could be grateful for that. Moreover, even if I lost to Julia without her using her primary weapon, it wouldn't damage my reputation too much, as she was the top-ranked student in the Knight Department. That being said, I had no intention of accepting defeat easily. I would give it my all. Alright, let's see what you've got, I said. With a rapier in her right hand, Julia assumed her fighting stance. Her stance resembled that of Sienna's. She must have practiced after losing to Sienna last week. The fact that she could reproduce the stance so well, even without the observer's eye, made me appreciate the power of her master-level trait, Weapon Master, all the more. First, I need to study her movements. Although I had already observed her movements and speed, actual combat was a different story. I took my own fighting stance, holding a practice longsword in my right hand. I'll make the first move, I said. Come at me whenever you're ready, Julia replied, nodding her head. Without hesitation, I charged towards her. As I had anticipated, Julia's swordsmanship was strikingly similar to Sienna's. I watched their duel closely just last week. I was quite familiar with it. Her precision and skill aren't quite there yet. It would have been truly hopeless if she had mastered the rapier in just a week. Her overall prowess was on par with Noctur. Whirl, swish. As I parried and dodged Julia's rapid sword strikes, I thought to myself, buy a little more time, until she believes this is the extent of my abilities. Fortunately, my own swordsmanship was superior. The sword user trait, enhanced by the amplification orb, significantly increased my understanding and proficiency with swords. Haha, I'm disappointed. It seems the true warrior that the orc spoke of was only of the mental aspect. That's right, keep thinking that. I still had one secret move up my sleeve. The duel continued, with me seemingly at a slight disadvantage. Ha! I guess Julia is going to win, but it's not as exciting as I thought it would be. True. Though that level of skill is still quite impressive. The students casually watched our duel unfold. Let's end this now, Theo. Julia's assault became bolder, and her attacks grew rougher. Now's the time. I immediately activated Overload for 10 seconds. Oh, Julia seemed intrigued by my transformed appearance. However, being the top-ranked first-year student in the Knight Department, she quickly adapted to my enhanced strength and speed. Damn it. My strength stat should be at least 12 right now, while hers is 11, just barely falling short. Though I had the advantage in both skill and strength while using Overload, it wasn't enough to take her down. The moment Overload's duration ended, I would be finished. And for days afterward, I'd be confined to my bed. Huff. The 10-second duration of Overload ended. Fatigue rapidly set in. But I couldn't give up now that I had seen a chance. I'll bear the bedridden fate. Julia's guard was completely down. Without Overload, I wouldn't stand a chance against her for even 10 seconds. As I used Overload for another 10 seconds, a translucent window appeared before me. Additional effect analysis complete. you can amplify the additional effect. Do you wish to amplify? At the same time, I felt the amplification orb in my pocket tremble slightly. So, not only magic and traits, but also the special effects of hidden pieces can be enhanced. Being a high-level magic artifact, it had an array of diverse effects. But now was not the time to marvel at it. What mattered was that I now had a chance to win. Of course, I'll use it. Whoong! After a brief tremor, the amplified overload activated. Phew! I exhaled deeply. At this moment, I felt capable of anything. My eyes felt like they were about to burst with blood. My heartbeat raced, loud enough to hear in my ears. It was as if I had taken some sort of performance-enhancing drug. My muscles screamed in response. My limbs felt both heavy and light at the same time. Whoosh! I gripped the long sword with both hands and swung it with great force. Ha! Julia was taken aback. I continued my assault. If an opportunity presents itself, I had to seize it. I can win. With the amplified overload, I was much stronger. My mouth hung open, and a vicious grin formed involuntarily. Perhaps my face looked absolutely deranged right now. It doesn't matter. Though I could feel a sharp pain from Twisted Noble's dignity, it wasn't enough to stop me. My sole motivation was the pure desire to win. I swung the long sword relentlessly, as if striking down with an axe. Crash, 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 crash. Now, Julia was left with nothing but defense, her practice sword raised above her head. Eventually, her practice sword shattered with a splintering crack. Thump! She fell to the ground, her rear hitting the earth. Wow, what just happened? Did anyone see that? He seemed like a completely different person. Look at his face, I believe he was a demon. The students murmured amongst themselves. The thrilling 10-second surge of power ended. My body, once burning hot, cooled rapidly. I returned to my previous, abysmal stats of 7 in strength and stamina. At the same time, I was hit with an immense wave of fatigue. Although I had only used the power for 20 seconds, it felt as if I had used it for over a minute. The fatigue amplified just as much as the effect had. Get up! While still seated, I offered my hand to Julia, who looked at me with wide, astonished eyes. Theo Lynn Walderk. You really are a true warrior. I admit defeat. Julia took my hand and stood up. I've fought many opponents, but I've never faced someone like you before. It was as if you became an entirely different person. It was a good match. I responded modestly and turned away, feeling dampness under my nose. I swiped a finger beneath my nose and found blood. This, too, must be the price of the amplified overload. I mustn't use this recklessly. My body felt heavier by the second, as if it were a waterlogged sponge. After wiping the blood from my nose with a handkerchief, I turned my head to look at Irene, who was seated nearby. Her eyes were wide as she stared at me. Within her blue irises, I saw fear. It was as if she had come face to face with her nightmares. Chapter ends. Ch 57 Bad Habits 4. Following my clash with Julia, I immediately returned to the dormitory. I was in no condition to attend more classes. My body felt incredibly heavy. Seeing Sienna is out of the question. Given my current physical state, I suspect I'll be bedridden for at least a couple of days. It was a struggle to make it back to the dormitory. I managed to endure, enhancing my Twisted Noble's dignity trait with the amplification orb. My body teeters on the brink of collapse, yet it moves, akin to a marionette with disjointed limbs. Phew, at least I made it back. I've never craved the comfort of my bed quite like this before. Creaking. Hearing my approach, Amy emerged and offered a respectful bow. You've returned early, young master. Yes, I'm not feeling well, so I'll go to bed early. I'll be in my room for 2 or 3 days. Understood, young master. Is there anything else you need? I didn't want to get up until at least tomorrow morning, assuming I can even rise from bed. Tomorrow afternoon, pay a visit to the night department. Tell Irene that I have to cancel our appointment for tomorrow evening. Extend my apologies. Promises must be kept. While Irene currently views me favorably, I'm well aware that the affections of a woman can be as capricious as the wind. She could easily turn her back on me, holding a grudge. Lady Irene? Understood, young master. Yes, I'm going in now. Make sure to pass on my message. With that, I entered my room. I wanted to lie down on the bed immediately, but my body wouldn't move as I wanted. It was because of the amplified Twisted Noble's dignity. This damn trait does have its uses. Alright, I should take a shower. I was sweaty and was likely coated in dust. Only after taking a thorough shower could I finally collapse onto my bed. The following day. The classroom of the night department, Class A. It was still early before first period, so the classroom was quiet. Instead of her usual spot in the middle row, Irene found herself in the back, gazing out the window. Her mind was preoccupied with the memory of Theo from his duel with Julia yesterday. He reminded me so much of that time. She was reminded of an event before their academy admission, an incident that had forced her to confront her feelings for Theo. Even though she had come to accept her romantic feelings for Theo, she felt uneasy. What should I do? The unsettling sight of him bleeding and his wicked expression from yesterday. It bore an uncanny resemblance to that past incident. It was a reasonable guess. Theo's power was escalating at an astonishing rate. Certainly, the world is brimming with powerful individuals. However, this was Elinia Academy, a gathering of the continent's most exceptional talents. Among them, Theo's progression was indisputably remarkable. Few, if any, could match such swift growth. It was plausible enough to believe he was possessed by a demon, if he's changed since that incident. How should I treat him? It was a sentiment she had buried deep within her heart. No, she had tried to erase it from her mind. With Theo's recent earnest advances and growing appeal, she had chosen to dismiss it. Can't he just tell me what's going on? Perhaps he had intended to tell her tomorrow. He had formally invited her out for the first time. That seemed like something he would do. Suddenly, Irene? Ah, yes. Hold on. Thank you. She sensed a gaze from the back door. Turning slowly, Irene found a familiar face. That's Theo's servant, isn't it? Amy, was it? She was a woman Irene had seen on multiple occasions during her visits to the Waldorf family. A woman who always kept close to Theo, her expression unreadable. Without setting foot in the classroom, Amy held Irene's gaze. Rising from her seat, Irene approached Amy. I am Theo's servant, Amy. Yes. May I have a moment of your time, Miss Irene? Amy offered a respectful bow. Okay. Amy and Irene, having stepped outside, began their conversation. Yesterday, young Master Theo returned from school feeling unwell and is currently resting. I understand he was meant to have dinner with you today. Right. He asked me to apologize for not being able to join you for dinner. I understand. Irene nodded impassively. He is concealing something, as I suspected. It was evident that he had paid a significant price for such accelerated power. There exist traits that amplify one's strength at a cost, but as far as she knew, such traits were exceptionally rare. Then, a pact with a demon. She didn't want to believe that was the case, but she couldn't rule out the possibility of such a pact. Indeed, the likelihood was quite high. Otherwise, how could Theo, who had once pleaded for her help, now triumph over Julia, essentially the top contender of the night department? Did he relay anything else? He reiterated his sincerest apologies for breaking the promise. Irene felt a twinge of sorrow, because she knew Theo's regret was genuine. When had he ever apologized so fervently? He was someone who seldom offered a sincere sorry. His dark past had her feeling apprehensive. Now, I want to move forward together. She and Theo had come a long way. She didn't want to worry and struggle alone anymore. She wanted to break free from the habit of being disappointed. She wanted to walk together until her feelings turned to ashes, even if the path ahead was laden with thorns. All right. Please tell him to visit me when he's feeling better. She had ample time, and even if she sought an exit, she couldn't locate one now. After all, to her, he was both a precious fiancé and a true hero. Clatter, clatter. After her conversation with Irene, Amy boarded the carriage heading to the dormitory. The dormitory where Theo and she resided was closer to the night department. It was now past 10 in the morning. I wonder if the young master is awake yet. Theo's condition was similar to when he returned from the previous assessment. Given that he probably couldn't even lift a hand, she would have to take care of things for him. Pondering over breakfast options, she made her way towards the dormitory. An unwanted visitor with flowing blonde hair stood in front of the dormitory. It was Sienna, an elf possessing an aloof demeanor, as though she was the owner of the world. Amy's face hardened. What brings you here, Miss Sienna? Nice to see you, Amy. Sienna responded with a smile. Thank you for the other day. What do you mean? Weren't you the one who carried me to the dormitory 2 days ago? Ah, yes, but... Amy regarded Sienna with serene eyes. In stark contrast to Monday, Sienna appeared quite vibrant. Her lively and relaxed demeanor was just like when they first met. There's no need for gratitude, Miss Sienna. I was merely carrying out the young master's instructions. Well, I thought so. He's unexpectedly shy. Is Theo in his room? Yes, but he's not feeling well at the moment. Oh, was he also injured on Monday? Sienna's eyes narrowed. No. He has been unwell since yesterday, so I won't be able to see him today. Yes. Amy, looking apprehensive, cast her gaze toward Sienna. It was understandable, given the numerous tales Amy had heard about the dangers associated with spirit wizards. Spirit wizards, people driven by their own desires. Moreover, elves are known to never give up once they've developed an interest. She was a highly dangerous individual. Contrary to Amy's worries, Sienna willingly backed off. And she added, please give him this. It should help him right now. Sienna extended a glass bottle. Ugh, I had a hard time getting this. I wanted to show off a bit. Anyway, I'll be going. Please take care of our Theo. Safe travels, Miss Sienna. Ah, and please tell him not to pull any more pointless tricks. With that, Sienna departed. Pointless tricks. She was probably referring to the spirit repellent she had given the young master. Once Sienna had vanished from sight, Amy examined the glass bottle she received. There was no label, no explanation. Merely a bottle filled with a transparent liquid that looked like water. Yet, it exuded a sense of mystery. I don't sense any mana. I'll give it to him anyway. Now, what should I prepare for breakfast? After a brief contemplation, Amy made her way into the dormitory. Chapter ends. Ch 58 Bad Habits, 4. The next morning, Thursday, I woke in peak condition. Elixir of Stamina Recovery, grade, Hero, consuming it rapidly restores stamina. The time and amount of recovery vary depending on the individual's condition. After consumption, a cooldown period exists which varies per individual. View details. This was all thanks to the potion Amy had given me yesterday. I should thank Sienna. In the original Karenzina Chronicles story, stamina plays a role, not just HP and MP. If you deplete all your stamina, you're left incapacitated. So managing stamina is as crucial as managing HP and MP. Hence, this elixir of stamina recovery is an item even the wealthy think twice before using carelessly, especially in the game's later stages. It's not something money can easily buy. It's a hero-grade consumable from ordinary, rare, hero, legend, to myth you can only obtain by building a certain level of favorability with the elves. Anyways, it's bought me some time. Typically, I'd be out and about only by Saturday. But now, I've gained an extra 2 days. And there's another bonus. You have completed a hidden quest. You have received 10 silver coins as a reward, increased stats without item assistance, repeatable, total reward, 10 silver coins. Finally, my strength level has gone up from 7 to 8. My stamina is still at 7, but with all the tumbling I've been doing, it's likely to increase soon, right? Was the traditional orc tribe's elixir effective after all? Truthfully, if I didn't notice any effects until next week, I was considering not using it anymore. The taste is the absolute worst, second only to mint chocolate. Time to get ready. I lightly stretch, shower, and eat the breakfast Amy delivered. Amy suggested, "Young master, it would be better not to take the tonic I gave you last time." So, I didn't use the lesser spirit repellent. Sienna likely warned her about it. First, I'll visit Rock to assess the aftermath, then I'll squeeze in some training before visiting Irene. I hope she isn't too upset. I certainly owe her an apology. Like I once told the Fornique, Andrew, Child, Aisha, I believe that even negative feelings can turn into good ones with enough effort. The original story had many such cases. After finishing breakfast, I prepare to take the carriage. I sense a gaze from somewhere. Someone's watching me. Using the amplification orb to enhance observer's eye, I scan my surroundings carefully. Near a general shop by the stop, I noticed something amiss. It was an exceptionally subtle energy. Only a few within the academy could conceal their presence like this. What's going on? Approaching the general shop, I murmured. Zhang Wehi, you actually saw me. I'm glad to see you, Theo. Zhang Wehi emerged from behind the general store, like a shadow slithering into view. As expected, I studied her with a placid gaze. There was no escaping her anyway. Despite being just 14, Zhang Wehi had no qualms about killing. She had been trained as a deadly weapon from an early age. The fact that she's shown herself to me implies she must have completed her investigation into me. It's strange. What is? For the heir of a renowned family, famed across the continent, there's surprisingly little information about you. All I found were frivolous, worthless tidbits like the disgrace of the Walderk house and the tiger that gave birth to a puppy. What are you implying? Feigning ignorance, I probed. I had a hunch as to why Zhang Wehi was approaching me, but I wasn't entirely certain. Let me be honest. I really have no idea who you are. Suddenly, a deadly intent radiated from Zhang Wehi's impassive face. But you must have a fairly, extremely proficient informant to have known my identity, right? Or perhaps you had another means. So, are you planning to kill me? I don't plan on killing you right now, of course. However, suddenly, even Zhang Wehi's serene eyes were alight with murderous intent. If you become unnecessary, I'll have to kill you. You pose a danger, all my senses are warning me of this. What do you want? Externally, I maintained my composure, but inside I was petrified. She was a top-ranked assassin in the world. While she felt merely formidable in the original story, it was terrifying to confront her in reality. I used the amplification orb to amplify Twisted Noble's dignity, doing my best to seem nonchalant. If Zhang Wehi decided to kill someone, she would do so without batting an eye. I need to hold on. However, it doesn't mean she relishes in killing. A flicker of sorrow crossed Zhang Wehi's eyes. I'm looking for a prophet. Zhang Wehi whispered. So she thinks I have the power of prophecy. The moment my suspicion morphs into certainty. The best way to prevent the Academy's downfall is to persistently undermine, turning white, a group of villains. The reason behind having her decode the code and inducing her to seek me out was all part of my plan. Zhang Wehi fell right into my trap. She would make a reliable ally. She doesn't refrain from using any means necessary. Besides being tight-lipped, she barely displays the emotional turmoil typical of young female students. I offer her the information she desires, and she carries out my commands. In essence, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Zhang Wehi broke the silence. Are you a prophet? Anticipation practically leaked out of her voice. For a moment, I feigned contemplation. Naturally, this was all part of setting the scene. Finally, yes, I whispered back. Zhang Wehi drew nearer and whispered into my ear. Prove it. Why should I? In this narrative, prophets were rarer than spirit wizards. Moreover, it's difficult to approach them as they're usually under national protection. Even across the whole continent, there are fewer than 10 genuine cases, and the majority can only foresee fragmentary pieces of the future. Then die. But Zhang Wehi's murderous intent had been waning for some time. She's bluffing. Genuine prophecy users are more scarce than dragons. Zhang Wehi can't kill me. Her primary motive for enrolling at Elinia Academy was to locate a prophecy user to begin with. Think harder. Don't act like a child. Shouldn't you first propose what you can offer me? Name your demand. Zhang Wehi narrowed her eyes. There will be operatives from an organization named Turning White within the academy. Francis, who was apprehended on Monday, was also a member. Without revealing your identity, identify the remaining infiltrators. Once I have seen your capabilities, I'll decide whether I can share the words of the divine with you. Jiang Wei vanished, determined to find the infiltrators. I headed to the hero department to meet with Rock and assess the aftermath of the magic dungeon incident. As one would expect from a senior professor, his work was thorough and immaculate. If everything goes according to his report, I should evade any suspicion from Turning White. I've checked it, senior professor. Please proceed as planned. Understood. Bear in mind, the suspension of classes only lasts this week. Understood. I stepped outside. But what could be the identity of that bald old man? The amplified, twisted noble's dignity was still in effect. But even when I used the highest level of respect, I felt no discomfort. His presence in the original story was minimal. The future has already deviated significantly. I can't deduce anything with my current knowledge, so I must minimize the variables. I'll have to task Jiang Wei with investigating that bald man later. With my thoughts in order, I made my way towards the training grounds. I'm here to review my duel with Julia. Keek. I beeline towards the swordsmanship training ground. In the main hall, a woman with striking red short hair was mopping up her sweat. She seemed to have completed an intense training session, her body soaked in sweat. Peel. I attempted to avoid eye contact, but our gazes inadvertently met. Peel merely stared at me with a peculiar expression. There was no hint of an apology in her demeanor. I quickly looked away. Let's each go our separate ways. Truthfully, my anger toward her had all but evaporated. Even though she spouted nonsense about me being a contractor of a demon, I wasn't. What does she expect me to do? I have no idea how to prove otherwise. And whenever a threat looms over the academy, she will undoubtedly be a great asset. Unlike in the original story, Peel will no longer be deterred in front of the colossal wall named Neek. She embodies a sense of justice in every route. That was enough. I'll be myself, Peel will be Peel. Maintaining this distance is ideal. Just as I was about to stride toward the training ground. Hey, Peel called out. There's nobody else around. Ignoring her would only make things more awkward. What? You were at the night department 2 days ago, right? What about it? You won. Against the unofficial strongest. Yeah. Peel didn't utter another word, but her face flushed and she seemed to hesitate. If there's nothing else, I'll leave. Wait. Peel clenched her eyes shut. Don't get the wrong idea and just hear me out. What is it? Why is she hesitating so much? Is she about to apologize? CA, can you remove your clothes for a moment? Chapter ends. CH59 Imagine more, 2. In a fluster, I gazed at Peel, trying to mask my bewilderment. What nonsense are you talking about, Peel? Peel glanced around and then said, exactly what I said. Just, take off your clothes for a moment. I need to check something. No way. What on earth had gotten into her? Why should I suddenly put on a one-man striptease? Well, I guess there's no choice. Peel raised her rapier and pointed it at me. I'll have to use force if necessary. Stop it. Please, just stop. But Peel's gaze remained unwavering. She was dead serious. What should I do? I had no idea why she was acting like this, but it was dangerous. Even if I used my amplified overload, my chances of escaping her were practically zero. That's when a thought flashed through my mind. If I played this right, what are you suddenly trying to do? Regardless of the reason, resorting to force without hesitation? Is that truly befitting of a member of the esteemed Shalin family? However, Peel answered without hesitation. Family? Honor? I don't need any of that. This is the most important thing to me right now. That was the wrong answer. I immediately thought of another way. I had overcome countless challenges in the past, and this would be no different. Isn't an apology more important right now? An apology? For when we accused you? Yes. In the original story, she would have apologized right away if she thought she had done something wrong. Has she somehow changed? In any case, it looks like getting an apology is unlikely. If I used this to my advantage, I could escape this predicament. Fine. But only after I've seen you undress. I'll apologize or do whatever you want. Just, come here. It turned out that was just wishful thinking. Peel strode towards me with determination. She was relentless. Peel roughly grabbed my wrist. Ouch, that hurt. How could such strength come from her small frame? It hurts. Stay still, and don't think about running away. It'll only take a moment. At that moment, the door to the training hall swung wide open. Peel, let's train together. Oh, Neek, Andrew, and Aisha, the trio had entered. They stared at us, their eyes widening in surprise. Ha. You're already training together. Alright, we'll train by ourselves then. See you later. With that, they hastily closed the door and left. Those damn cowards, just leaving like that. Even after the trio left, Peel showed no signs of releasing me. Enough, let me go. I said it hurts. I won't let go until I get your consent. Peel's expression was firm, her eyes desperate. Sigh, but it was a request I couldn't comply with. To undress without reason would be madness. Peel may have said she'd do anything, but I'm not a male prostitute who trades his body for compensation. This is non-negotiable. Moreover, Peel is a girl that's younger than me. Although this body isn't my original one, I want to show my naked body only to my future girlfriend. Do you realize how outrageous your request is? At least let me see your body. Other kids switch partners and play around. Peel mumbled her response. It was a fact. Only a minority of the academy's freshmen didn't go on blind dates. Regardless, I had to push back. That's them, and this is me. I refuse. But if you agree, I'll do whatever you want. I still refuse. Stop humiliating me. It's shameful. My modern friends might have teased me for being a unicorn, but my values haven't changed. Isn't that only natural? I believe that physical relationships without a connection are worthless. What do I get from such promiscuous encounters? Also, it's not like I'm injured and need nursing. I can't just undress for no reason. Ha! Fine. Peel let go of my wrist. But I haven't given up. What do you mean? I'll see your naked body, as soon as possible. Isn't she embarrassed? She utters such words without hesitation. I mean, there is no one around. But in some ways, she's more terrifying than Sienna. My decision won't change. If you force this on me again, I won't stay quiet. After that, I left the training ground. Swinging my sword in the training field had left me exhausted. As I walked around, I tried to soothe my throbbing head. Theo, Sienna appeared before me, grinning. I wasn't sure when she had approached, but she was standing far too close. A simple tilt of my head and our lips would touch. I discreetly put some distance between us. Sienna, how have you been? Much better since yesterday. It was so tough, you know? She clung to my arm. Could you step back a bit? No. Do you know how much I missed you? I couldn't even see you when I came by yesterday. Ah, what you gave me yesterday. I'm truly grateful. It helped me recover. I was sincerely thankful. Even if she had taken an interest in me, it was incredible for her to give me an item of such a high caliber. Even for me, it was quite challenging to obtain. It was very effective. Then give me a reward. A reward? A sudden sense of unease crept over me, even more so since Peel had made an outrageous request just moments ago. And that unease became a reality. Hug me. Sienna released my arm and spread hers wide in front of me. Tightly, please. So tight that my ribs feel like they're crumbling. Really tight. Sienna flashed a radiant smile. She was already beautiful, but her smile made me understand why people were so captivated by beauty. I can't do that. That was out of the question. If she had asked for a different token of gratitude, I would have obliged somehow. But as I said before, I'm no womanizer. People around me often say that a true warrior never resists the advances of women or a true hero knows how to enjoy female company, but I'm neither a true warrior nor a hero. I am just, well, me. PSH, you don't have to make such a face. Sienna drooped her head, looking disheartened. I'm sorry, but I can't. Fine. Sienna lifted her head. She recovered quickly. Well, then I'll be the one to hug you. In an instant, Sienna tightly wrapped her arms around me. Ouch. It hurt like hell. Sienna squeezed me as if to shatter my ribs. Sienna. Ack, it hurts. Just endure it. This much is enough. Sienna held me and spoke. I heard you had quite a match in the night department yesterday? Yes, that's right. You did well. My man should have that much spirit. But don't push yourself too hard. I understand. You're adorable. Sienna patted my back. In the training hall, Peel stared blankly out the window, her heart in turmoil. There, she witnessed a sight she could hardly believe. What on earth are they doing? Theo and Sienna were sharing a passionate embrace. Peel rubbed her eyes several times, wondering if she was dreaming. But it wasn't a dream. I can't believe it. It was a shocking scene. Peel knew Sienna quite well. Even her father had insisted she build a close relationship with the elf princess. Of course, she had no intention of heeding her father's words. His advice didn't seem particularly important in their current situation. In face, her primary reason for enrolling in Elainia Academy was to escape her stifling family. There were more important matters for her to attend to. Yet for me, it's like she built a wall between us. Of course, Theo had been forcibly embraced by Sienna, but the rage-filled Peel couldn't think rationally. But when will they separate? They look like they've clinging to each other all day. Just a moment ago, they had both seemed so pure and innocent. What were they doing now? Ugh. What made her even angrier was her own heart. She had never cared about anyone else's relationships, yet now she could hardly contain her fury. After a few minutes of watching them, her boiling head began to cool, and a hint of reason returned to her. Upon closer inspection, it didn't look like they were dating. Peel observed the pair with a calm gaze. Yeah, that's what I thought. Sienna continued to cling to Theo, while he remained still. Even so, Peel resented him. Her inner thoughts slipped out. You jerk. Chapter ends. Ch60 Imagine More, 3. Afterward, Peel returned directly to her dorm room. She didn't feel like swinging her sword anymore. She opened the window and blankly gazed outside. No one was out there. All she could see were tall trees, well-maintained grass, and flowers. If I knew this would happen, I would have just asked him outright. She thought she had made up her mind, but seeing the sadness in his eyes, she couldn't bring herself to speak. It was difficult to confront Theo again by mentioning the contract with the Great Demon. She had made a mistake with him just a few days ago. On Monday, in the dormitory for top students, the moment he heard the word demon, his red eyes had swirled with fury. My decision won't change. If you force this on me again, I won't stay quiet. He became serious. When he shot her a look as if she was a detestable insect, her heart felt heavy. But there's no other way. Knowledge of how to identify a great demon's contractor is incredibly rare. Only a few of her direct blood relatives, including herself, from the Challen family knew how. Markvern, my brother. It was depressing. Her fourth brother always came to mind in times like these. Everyone in the family treated her with disdain since she was the child of a concubine. She felt suffocated and trapped, but it didn't bother her much. Markvern de Challen. He was the only one among their blood relatives who treated her warmly. Peel, shall we practice swordsmanship together today? I think you're truly talented. Honestly, I doubt there's anyone with as much talent as you in our family or even across the entire continent. Ah, I lost. When did your skills improve so much? I can't compete with you anymore. Peel, don't distance yourself from the people around you. People can't live alone. If it's hard to forgive them, then laugh at them. Thanks to her fourth brother, Markvern, she had a relatively happy childhood. He was always on her side. He picked her up when she was about to fall and greeted her with a smile. Until he made a contract with a great demon. She was 11 years old at that time. Her family subdued him not long after he made the contract with the great demon. He died, but the damage was severe. They stopped him before he grew too strong. The two eldest sons of the family, known as the continent's greatest talents, died. Markvern was treated as if he never existed. In most countries, demon worship is a serious crime. If caught, not only the worshipper but also their entire family would be exterminated. Even with the Challen family's prestige, it was dangerous. Moreover, he didn't contract with just any demon, but a great demon. Fearing investigators, the family reduced his body to ashes using the flames of purification. After the incident, only the third sibling and Peel remained as potential successors. The dull-witted third sibling was wary of Peel, who was a genius. Without Markvern, the family felt cold and meaningless. Peel, disgusted with everything, silently trained alone until she enrolled at Elinia Academy. Why? But why Theo? She didn't know why he overlapped with her brother Markvern. He was cold in both expression and speech, not kind at all. Over Peel's reddened face, a tear welled up. She gently wiped her tear with her sleeve. Tadak. Then she hurriedly closed the window, just in case someone might see her in this hideous state. Strolling alongside Sienna near the hero department, we eventually made our way to the training ground. Naturally, training against a real person was far more beneficial than a mock dummy, especially when that person was as skilled as Sienna. So what weapon should I use against you? A rapier would be fine. 2 days ago, I sparred with Julia. She had emulated Sienna's swordsmanship during our match. Observing and comparing the original techniques would be incredibly helpful for improving my skills. After all, nothing beats repetitive practice when it comes to learning. Alright, I'll go first. We had been sparring for about 10 minutes when Sienna broke into a radiant smile. Wow, your skills have sharpened. How did you improve so quickly? You've grown much more since the last time I saw you. Is that so? However, I was still no match for Sienna. If I were to use my amplified overload skill in a surprise attack, I might be able to push her once or twice. But in pure skill, she was overwhelmingly superior. She's truly on another level compared to Julia when it comes to swordsmanship. Even though Sienna's stats and traits were inferior to Julia's, the caliber of her techniques was on a different level. In a way, it was only natural. Sienna was around 150 years old. If she had practiced the sword for even half of that time, that would amount to 70 to 80 years, 4 to 5 times the age of other academy students. Let's go again. I had assessed her skills enough by now. If Julia was like playing on normal mode, Sienna was akin to hard mode, but that also meant I was learning much faster. To get a better view of Sienna's movements, I enhanced Observer's Eye. Of course. Come at me whenever you're ready. Once more, I sparred with Sienna. I carefully observed her every movement, from her techniques to her most insignificant habits. I took note of how wide she spread her feet when using a technique, the angle at which she bent her wrist, and when she paused to breathe during continuous attacks. I even looked for areas in her swordsmanship that could be further developed. Absorb it all. Although I had enhanced my Observer's Eye, merely watching wasn't enough. I had to train and make it my own. I recently realized something. When using a technique, it shouldn't go through your head. Your body should react before you think. Victory can be decided in that brief moment. So I drilled the movements into my body until it could remember them. This way, my body would react before my head. Only then could I confidently use them in actual combat. Our sparring session ended, and Sienna looked at me with a smile. Theo. I didn't realize it at first, but the more I watch you, the more I see you have the qualities of a ruler. A ruler? Yes, a ruler. You suit the role. I've seen many people from various walks of life, but it's been a long time since I've met someone like you. That might be because of your age. Quiet, you. Sienna glared at me, her eyes seeming to spark. Alright, fine. Anyway, I've seen a lot of people. Kings of different nations, people called rulers, and so on. But all of them were hungry, never satisfied with what they had and always in a state of constant desire. Is that so? I didn't feel ambitious. I was simply struggling to survive. Those types of people always end up becoming rulers. I sense that energy in you. I have no intention of ruling over others. It doesn't suit me. Hee, but you can't easily escape fate, can you? Sienna playfully clung to my arm and looked up at me with a bright smile. I turned my head away and replied, I don't believe in fate. Had the person I transmigrated into been a priest or cleric, perhaps I would have believed. Anyway, I must be going now. There's a place I need to visit. Where are you going? The night department. I had to apologize to Irene. It's best to apologize sooner rather than later. Theo and Sienna arrived at the night department, taking a carriage together. As their arrival coincided with the end of a lecture, students from the night department streamed out of the classroom building. With his arms crossed, Theo waited for about 5 minutes before Irene emerged. Irene. Theo. Irene approached Theo and glanced at Sienna, who stood close by his side. Unusually, she wasn't angry. She simply felt relieved that he was healthy again. Are you feeling all right now? Yeah, I'm well enough to spar again. I'm glad. So, what did you come to talk about? As she spoke, Irene cast a sidelong glance at Sienna. Not being angry was a lie. That elf really irritated her. Unconsciously, Irene clenched her fist as she looked at Sienna clinging to Theo like a cicada. Theo bowed his head slightly. I came to apologize. I'm truly sorry, Irene, for breaking my promise. All right. I'd like to invite you to dinner once more. Will you accept? Theo looked at Irene, his gaze as calm as usual. Yet, Irene sensed a burning passion within his eyes. All right. Irene felt her body tremble. She wanted to smile sweetly like that elf, but she held back. She didn't want to be compared to Sienna. She thought it would make her look foolish. Theo and the elf before her eyes, they looked too good together. So, instead of smiling, Irene maintained a stern expression. Poof. Sienna pouted her lips. Let me join too. Theo detached Sienna, who was clinging to his arm. Sienna. Theo closed his eyes for a moment and then opened them, gazing at Sienna with a serene expression. It's a date between Irene and me. Just the two of us. Chapter ends. Ch 61 Treasure 1. My dinner plans with Irene fell through. It wasn't because Sienna was sulking. Irene insisted that our first dinner together couldn't be in a subpar place, something I agreed with. I quickly asked Amy to find a fancy restaurant, but they were booked solid for 3 days straight, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It made sense that the reservations were packed. Unlike in modern times, where there's plenty of entertainment like movies and games to enjoy, this world had only a handful of leisure activities. So, dining held a prime spot in everyone's list of pastimes. Barging into a restaurant and taking over the place wasn't a feasible option. However, Irene had something important she wanted to discuss, so postponing indefinitely wasn't an option either. So, I managed to book a dinner date for the following Saturday. Both Irene and I had commitments on weekdays, club activities for me, and academic responsibilities for her as a model student. So, Saturday was the best choice. I spent the remaining 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, hanging out with the orcs. Meanwhile, I also gained from the trio, Nick, Andrew, and Aisha, promising their assistance in the future. Quite a lucky break. All three were all valuable assets with a wide range of skills. Their personalities meant they were likely to honor their promise. The dawn of the 7th week, Monday, marked the beginning of the artifact exploration evaluation. Groggily rising from bed, I performed a light stretch. I must be careful this week. My schedule was packed to the brim. And this afternoon, an important task was waiting for me. My mission was to obtain the magic cartridge, treasure from the magical dungeon for the evaluation. The magic cartridge is an artifact that enables casting up to third circle magic without using any mana. Even I, who possess 0 mana, could use magic. In its initial state, it's pretty much an empty can, needing to be charged with mana and stored with various magic. Despite being such a treasure, magic cartridge doesn't play a significant role in the original story. Nick has extraordinary talent, learning third circle magic in a matter of days regardless of the route you decide for him. If Nick was on the mage route, he'd be just shy of graduating to the 5th circle right now, casually casting third circle magic without effort. The players of the original game consider obtaining the magic cartridge a waste of time. Well, then, it's only fitting I make use of it. I happen to have the amplification orb, too. I could try a combination unexplored in the original game. It sounds straightforward, but it's a 3-component combo: 0 mana Theo X, amplification orb, X, magic cartridge. Off to school, then. After having breakfast and getting ready, I headed directly to the hero department. The classroom bustled with student chatter. I feel like I've been idle too long. My mind and body are stiff. I actually took a long break for once, and it cost me all the allowance I had. Is there a decent paying part-time job around? Man, I confessed to Syria last week and got rejected. Don't ask me about it. Syria? The daughter of the Black Tower Master from the Magic Department? Yep. You were also captivated by her voluptuous heart, huh? Ah, my comrade. Ugh, bug off. Stop hugging me. I need to find another girl this week. The familiar classroom scene unfolded with students chatting away. As per usual, I joined the orcs in the back row. Just as we were exchanging greetings, Professor Rock made his entrance. Ah, my eyes. The dazzling light bouncing off Rock's glossy scalp was blinding. As I squinted to fend off the unexpected assault from the sun. Silence, everyone. The room instantly fell quiet at Rock's command. An announcement before beginning the first lecture. He scanned the room, eyes lingering on me a bit longer than others before continuing. It's regarding the magic dungeon incident from last week. The statement made waves. Did they finally catch them? So that's why the classes are back on, right? Who caught them? Was it the professors? The students broke into whispers. Following Rock's clap, a teaching assistant entered, carrying a large scroll. He pinned the scroll to the bulletin board next to him with a grunt. For more details, refer to the scroll. Classes will resume as usual from today. I encourage everyone to try their utmost to move past this. Rock and the assistant left the room. The moment they departed, almost all students swarmed around the bulletin board. Needless to say, our team, the real captors of the culprit, remained seated. The offender was Instructor Francis, caught by the first-year investigative team? Wait, so it wasn't the professors who captured him? Ah, I can't see. Move aside. Who belongs to this first-year investigative team? Let's see. Neek, Peel, Jangwei, Aisha, Andrew, Ishild. Wow, that's seriously incredible. How did they manage to capture an instructor, a criminal the professors couldn't catch? Aisha, tell us what happened. The 6 individuals were quickly encircled by their fellow students. The crowd buzzed, anticipating an exiting story. Ah, the 6 seemed uncomfortable, sweat beading on their foreheads. As the crowd cooled down a bit, Neek spoke. Sorry, everyone. It's a difficult story to tell. Then, their gazes subtly shifted toward me. Silently, I bore their scrutiny. I didn't make any move. I never mentioned that they would be credited for catching the perpetrator. They'll never forget. For their entire lives, this vague unease would linger. Now, they were fish trapped in the same tank as me. The situation had already been made public. In such a scenario, they couldn't possibly claim, actually, we didn't catch him, Theo did. Unless they abandon their ambitions and retreat to the countryside for a quiet life, they'd have to tread carefully not to offend me for the rest of their lives. These kids were born to be heroes. They promised to help me when I needed it. But I won't only use them once. All 6 of them were named characters playing active roles in every route. Neek is even the protagonist. Theo, your face right now. It's kind of scary. Oh, I was just enjoying a pleasant thought. After responding casually to Noctur, I focused on the morning theoretical class. Morning classes had finally come to an end. The afternoon was dedicated to practical evaluation. First, I'll secure the magic cartridge. As previously mentioned, today's practical evaluation theme is artifact exploration. Naturally, the dungeon where we're expected to explore artifacts is also conjured by archmagodious magic. Just as the monsters in the monster subjugation were somewhat inferior to the real ones, the artifact exploration is also simplified compared to the real deal. Approximately 200 students were split up and boarded 5 45-seater carriages, heading towards the Western Forest. We reached the Western Forest, our designated location. Will something else happen this time? I'm terrified. Don't worry, our Golden Generation 6 will handle it somehow, right? From morning lessons until now, the students couldn't stop discussing the 6. Even now, as we disembarked the carriage, the students continued pestering the 6 to share with them the heroic tale. I locked eyes with Peel. I must not end up on the same team as her. Outwardly, I was composed. But inside, the image of Peel pressuring me to strip haunts me. Who knew what that woman might do to me? Everyone, pay attention. Rock, like the previous time, addressed the students with the field instructors lined up behind him. I will now announce the team compositions. Upon finishing his sentence, Rock's assistant pinned a scroll to the wooden board standing beside him. My team was right at the top. Team 1, Aisha/Ralph/Noctur/Travis/Theo. Nice. Aisha, let's do well together. Nice to see you, Theo. Our luck must be good to be on the same team again. Ralph and Travis, who landed in the same group, could barely contain their excitement. The team composition is good. No, it's excellent. With this, we arguably have the best team composition, barring Neek and Peel's team. One of Aisha's traits, sharp vision, provides a tremendous advantage in exploration. But he should know Noctur and I are close. Did he pull some strings? I glanced at Rock standing at a distance. Our eyes met, and Rock gave a sly smile, subtly nodding his head. Chapter ends. CH62 Treasure 2. Right. Good to see you, Travis. I returned Travis' greeting. Ah, we really are lucky. Who would have thought we'd all end up together? There's Theo, Ralph, Noctur, and even Aisha. Travis beamed, taking in our assembled team. In contrast, Ralph stared at me with a stern expression. We sure keep crossing paths, Theo. Do we? I was honestly not sure. Had Ralph and I crossed paths that often? Our interactions were minimal at best. Sure, Ralph had been my opponent in the previous practical evaluation, but he hadn't been in my thoughts much since then. Seems like lots of familiar faces here. Noctur swiveled his thick neck, surveying the group. Then, he looked at Ralph. You're Ralph, right? I remember. Forget about the evaluation. I may have lost then, but things are different now. No, how could I forget? You gave it your all, didn't you? Even warriors can't always be victorious. The key is learning from defeat. The great war god once said, to be a true warrior, you must accept your past failures. It was an impressive performance. Ralph looked up at Noctur. A moment later, the corners of his mouth twitched. Thanks, Noctur. To be honest, your match impressed me the most. I assumed you'd be at a clear disadvantage, but you defied all expectations. Ralph extended his hand towards Noctur. Ha, I can't just lose to a wizard. Noctur, grinning ear to ear, clasped hands with Ralph. They seemed to get along surprisingly well. Watching the pair, Travis, still wearing his broad grin, turned to Aisha. But Aisha hasn't said a word? She's the hero who nabbed the culprit of the magic dungeon incident. It's fate that we're on the same team, so don't be shy. Ah. Aisha's eyes fluttered nervously. She quickly threw a glance in my direction. Yeah. Say something. I looked at Aisha coolly and urged her. I'll do my best. This time, I won't let anyone down. What do you mean, let anyone down? If anyone is a burden here, it's us. Isn't that right, everyone? Travis looked at us, his smile unwavering. Absolutely. Aisha is ranked 6th overall, but she's also first in theoretical grades, isn't she? To be honest, I struggle with the thinking part. Just tell me what to do. I agree. A true warrior should use his brain, but it's wise to follow if there's a proven tactician. Ralph and Noctur chimed in. The two echoed each other perfectly. Once again, Aisha looked at me and started speaking. I'll give it my all. She whimpered, reminiscent of a rabbit terrified of a looming wolf. It was as if she was broadcasting her fear for all to hear. I'm scared, what should I do? It almost made me feel like the bad guy. Travis and Ralph, confused, offered Aisha their encouragement. Aisha, you must be worn out today, that's understandable. Being the center of attention can be tiring. But once we enter the dungeon, you'll snap back into your clever, dependable self, right? Aisha always delivers when it counts. We trust you, Aisha. We'll need your skills for the evaluation. Aisha seemed to be at a loss for words. I felt the need to intervene. If Aisha continued in this state, it could become problematic. Aisha. Yes. Oh, Theo. You were, saying? Her current state was indeed concerning. How had such a shrewd character, always so aware of her surroundings, been reduced to this state? First, I needed to diffuse Aisha's nervousness. Come over here for a moment. I want to discuss something. Yes. Her already trembling eyes began to quake as if there was an earthquake. She responded, yet she remained rooted to the spot, seemingly unable to move. Sigh. I approached Aisha and whispered into her ear. Just act as you normally would. Don't be so nervous. It was only then that Aisha met my gaze and, yes. She nodded vigorously, her petite face bobbing up and down. Roughly 10 minutes had passed. Her nerves seemed to be easing somewhat. I observed Aisha interacting with the other students. She still wasn't completely relaxed, but, given a bit more time, she should recover. Tension can be detrimental to a hero before a mission. Even hot-headed types like Ralph or Aisha, who charge into battle at the mere sight of an enemy, are arguably better off. Noctur, who had just been debating with Ralph over whether an axe or a mace was the superior weapon, strolled over. Theo. What did you say to Aisha earlier? Nothing of particular importance. I just told her to act as she normally would. Oh, I see. Why do you ask? It's fascinating that a single sentence could ease her tension. It's an unusual sight. Noctur tilted his head. Well, it's nothing really. I nodded slowly. Anyway, it looks like it's about time to start. Multiple portals entrances to the magical dungeon started materializing near the forest. Shortly after, Rock summoned the students once more. Naturally, my team was the first to be called. Rock glanced at our team, more specifically at me, and began to speak. Team 1, proceed. Understood. Typically, in scenarios involving portals or dungeons, the students with higher ranks enter first. Aisha was the first to step into the magical dungeon. In her wake, Ralph, Noctur, Travis, and I made our entrance. Phew. I exhaled briefly, hoping that the future would remain unchanged this time. Let's proceed. Where are we? Upon entering the magical dungeon, Travis surveyed our surroundings. During the monster subjugation, it was in grasslands. But this, it looks like a basement? Regardless of the angle, it doesn't seem like we're on the surface. A basement more likely. Aisha's red eyes glittered as she scanned our environment. Noctur, standing next to me, directed his gaze downwards. Theo, is this a basement? Yes, it's a basement dungeon. Luckily, it's exactly the same as in the original. In the game, the place had felt merely dark and gloomy, but being here in person, it was somewhat stuffy. I need to locate the treasure quickly and escape. My body seemed to reject this place. Our team's current location is basement level 4, B4 of the dungeon. The artifact exploration evaluation concludes when we secure the marker situated on basement level 1, B1 and ascend to the surface. In essence, the crux of the task is to navigate our way to B1. With Aisha's sharp vision, it should be much easier. Her trait exerts an overwhelming influence when it comes to finding paths. The evaluators aren't fools. They've stationed a guardian at B1, however, with heavy hitters like Ralph and Noctur, we should be able to handle it easily. Good, we need days like this. I balled my hand into a fist. The treasure I need to secure, magic cartridge, is also located at B1. Just like the previous time when I acquired natural power, I need to input a special pattern to obtain the magic cartridge. If you know the pattern, it's relatively simple. Naturally, I've committed the pattern to memory. Aisha, is something wrong? Yes. As you all know, my trait allows me to see clearly even in this level of darkness, but, Travis eyed Aisha with a troubled expression. Aisha shook her head. I can see, but it's not crystal clear. It appears there's some magical device obscuring vision within this basement. Ah. No wonder I couldn't see anything at all. Travis exhaled heavily. So, what's our next course of action? Ralph swung the mace in his hand, warming up. Honestly, at present, it seems we don't have any ideal options. We either dismantle the magical device or we proceed cautiously, learning from trial and error. Aisha raked her fingers through her hair. We're in for a slog. Travis and Ralph sighed in unison. Why can't things ever be simple? Time is of the essence. My objective is to secure the magic cartridge and simultaneously rank first. I cast magic nullification upon myself. Sure enough, there's magic at play in this space. Now, I can see with crystal clarity. Meanwhile, everyone else is virtually blind. It wasn't like this in the original game. From where did this butterfly effect originate? Of course, it's beyond my capacity to predict. If I had such an intellect, I'd already have confronted the rascal who hurled me into this world. Everyone, focus for a moment. All I can do is do my utmost to overcome this hurdle. Chapter ends. I swiftly hatched a new plan. Then what to do? All 200 first-year students from the hero department are inside this underground dungeon. It seems that just like my team, all the other students are probably suffering from the limited vision caused by the magic. It's like being blind. But, going forward to be one like this isn't smart. My goal is to grab the treasure, magic cartridge, and take the top spot at the same time. To get first place, we'll have to fight the guardian sleeping at the exit to the surface. Fighting the guardian while practically blind is a no-go. We need to get rid of this blind status once and for all. I have only 5 magic nullification uses left. Wasting each of my 4 magic nullification spells on my team members, Aisha, Ralph, Noctur, Travis, would be foolish, because I too will soon fall under blind again. Such wide-ranging magic must surely have a source that keeps feeding it mana. We need to find and destroy this magic source as soon as possible to cut off the mana flow. While I was thinking all this over, Theo, what's going on? My team gathered around me. I want our team to be first. I got straight to the point. In a situation like this, it's best to cut out the fluff and be direct. I like your attitude. But how? You're right in front of me and still look blurry. How can we even think of winning? I can see a little better, but not by much. I can only see about 3 meters ahead. Ralph and Aisha responded. Do you have a plan? Honestly, I can't think of anything. Other teams are probably blind too, so we have to rely on Aisha's slightly better vision and move slowly. Travis also shared his gloomy opinion. I met their eyes calmly. There is a way. I'll take the lead and make sure we're first. But before that, I need a promise from all of you. The team members looked in my direction. Only Aisha was looking at my face, the others just turned towards where my voice was coming from. The situation wasn't good. But, other teams are probably having the same problems. Only Jang Woohye's team, who also has magic nullification, might be doing better. Trust me completely. Don't question me. If you can do that, I promise we'll be first. We don't need Neek, Peel, or anyone else. We'll reach the surface before their teams do. Noctur would naturally trust me. Travis had teamed with me last time, so he would likely comply. And of course, Aisha would agree too. That left only Ralph. Ralph didn't utter a word, just silently staring towards my voice. It was Aisha who broke the silence. I'll trust you, Theo, she declared, her gaze steady on me. Even though I'm ranked 6th, I'm clueless in this situation. I lack your confidence. But I will do my best. I'll follow your lead, Theo. But even Aisha is struggling. I doubt I can be of much help. Chimed in Travis. Noctur, meanwhile, was chuckling to himself. What's so funny, Noctur? It was funny how earnestly you're asking for trust. We're counting on you, Captain. Hey, Ralph. Let's go. A true warrior should always aim for first place. All right, Ralph nodded his head. Good, it seems we've managed to establish some sort of order. So, I'll be the temporary captain. Remember, no matter what I do, or what happens, don't question it. If you have any doubts, save them for after we've reached the surface. Let's go. First place is ours. Luckily, the structure of the underground dungeon matches exactly with what I recall from the original story. So, where would the base supplying mana to this widespread status magic be located? Quickly scanning my surroundings with my enhanced observer's eye, I began to think. The secret room in the center seems likely. In the original story, there was a chest filled with gold coins inside this secret room. It's a place inaccessible by ordinary means. Such a location would be fitting for a colossal magic stone that can fuel such extensive magic. Let's get started. I looked at my team. Got it, Captain. You're in charge again, just like last time. Alright, I'm pumped. A true warrior should be able to overcome such challenges. Responses came from Travis, Aisha, and Noctur, one after the other. Ralph remained silent. Hiya, he's as big as a mountain but as sensitive as a sulky 16-year-old. Annoying as it was, there was no time to pick a fight. First, deliver a result he can't refuse. Before long, our team arrived at the secret room in the center. So, this place existed. Apart from Theo, only Aisha, who had slightly better vision, could see the secret room. An odd room, encircled by stone walls on all sides, without a single door. It's the same as the original story. We have to break through this stone wall. Theo spoke calmly, surveying the secret room. Noctur, Travis. Demolish that wall. Got it. Noctur and Travis promptly hefted their primary weapons. Noctur wielded a hand axe, while Travis had a short spear. Bang, bang, bang. They swung their weapons against the stone wall. However, the wall remained strong. In contrast, their weapons seemed on the verge of shattering. Unable to just watch, Aisha offered her assistance. I'll help too. No, you need to conserve your strength for later. Ah, okay. Let me know if you need me. Understood. Aisha suppressed her habitual response of could you please respond a bit more enthusiastically? I wish things could go back to how they were. But all she could do at the moment was to follow Theo's orders. She watched Noctur and Travis, relentlessly pounding on the wall, a worried look in her eyes. Meanwhile, Theo turned his attention to Ralph. Break it, Ralph. Ralph hefted his weapon, a mace. A perfect choice for smashing down a wall like this. Theo's voice was firm. Do it thoroughly. Okay. Ralph activated 3 buff skills. They were only self-buffs, but they didn't require any casting time. With renewed vigor, Ralph struck his mace against the wall. Crash, crash, crash. Bits of stone started to chip away, a notable change compared to before. At this pace, it'll take forever. Theo quickly reconsidered his plan. He remembered that in the original story, Neek's team had managed to break through the wall without much trouble. Is this the difference between us? His thoughts were interrupted by Noctur's voice. This seems like it's going to take too long. Should we try that method? Noctur tapped his temple with his fist, hinting at forcibly triggering the battle instinct, blood rage, and war god's blessing. Theo shook his head. No, that's out of the question. That was a last resort. Once triggered, orcs would need a long period of rest. Smashing the wall was merely the beginning. They still had to confront the guardian of B1. Then, Theo turned his gaze back to Ralph. Bring it out, Ralph. What are you talking about? Your hidden ace. Ralph's eyes widened, his gaze focused on the direction of Theo's voice. Use that? Most active heroes had a hidden card up their sleeves, a secret ace unknown to others. Ralph, although a student, is a future hero. He too had a concealed ace, a 4th enhancement buff. But, how does he know? Theo was a little mysterious nowadays, but he hadn't expected him to know about this. Ralph had never revealed his 4th buff to anyone since enrolling in the academy. You agreed to follow my orders without question. Theo's insistent words echoed, his powerful aura pressuring Ralph. Ugh, I won't ask again. Your hesitation could jeopardize the rest of the team. Ralph could feel the intensity of Theo's aura, his gaze locked on the source of that overpowering presence. His eyes weren't visible, but his red eyes must be blazing with a fury like magma. Theo's words weren't wrong. However, conceding to someone he had once lost to bruised Ralph's deeply rooted pride. But right now, he's the only one we can rely on. Soon, Ralph decided to comply. He may still be a student, but he is also a future hero. He would sacrifice the small for the greater good. He decided to swallow his pride. Got it. Ralph activated his secret, 4th buff. A radiant glow enveloped him. An explosive surge of strength coursed through his entire body. Hooah! Ralph started swinging his mace with a force that seemed to reverberate through the very air. Crash! The impact of Ralph's powerful mace strike was staggering. In no time, the stone wall crumbled, revealing the hidden chamber and its secrets. Chapter ends. Asian light novel. 8 to 10 minutes. Inside the shattered hidden chamber, a large crystalline mana stone stood as expected. The crystal, as big as an orc's head and about 1.5 times larger than a human head, glowed and hummed. Wow! Even for those on the team with weaker eyesight, the powerful glow was clear. Aisha turned to me, worried. Theo, what's this? It's the source of the area's odd magic. It wasn't just any item. I checked its details and discovered it was rare grade item. It's worth about half a year's salary for most knights. I had only 5 uses of magic nullification left. Even if I boosted it with the amplification orb, only the strength would increase, not the number of times I could use it. I'd need to use it 4 times on my teammates, leaving only 1 use. I could nullify the large crystal's magic, then take some pieces, but it was too big to carry without a backpack. It seemed best to break it and take a fragment as proof. I'm going to break it. Even though it was valuable, it had to go. Okay, got it. Noctur and Ralph prepared their weapons. But Theo, should we really destroy this? It seems valuable. Ralph looked at me hesitantly. I agree, it's valuable. But if we don't, the magic won't stop. Break it. All right. With a swing of his weapon, Ralph struck the mana stone. Crash. This was the starting point. Crack! Thud! Ralph, Noctur, and Travis all attacked the crystal. Soon, the clear light pouring out of the crystal ceased. I stashed a few shards of the crystal in my pocket. I still can't see. Noctur rubbed his eyes and thumped his head. Of course. The magic has stopped, but the magic currently affecting us will last until it's supposed to end. This is annoying. Got any solutions, Theo? Sure do. I laid my hand on Noctur's shoulder and used magic nullification. Oh wow, I can see. This is amazing. Ralph, you did well. We would have wasted a lot of time without you. I forced you to use one of your trump cards. Now I'll also show my own. Like I did with Noctur, I used magic nullification on Ralph. Ralph looked at me with an incredulous expression. The technique you used on me during the practical evaluation. Yes, that's it. Is it okay to show such a secret? Why not? Even though we're rivals? Revealing a trump card could be risky. We're a team now. I'm not concerned. I responded, nonchalantly. From the start, I never thought of us as rivals. Alright. I think I understand why the orcs follow you. Ralph's eyes sparkled. What is he misunderstanding now? Regardless, I used magic nullification on Travis and was about to apply it to Aisha. Ugh. As my hand touched Aisha's shoulder, a tremor passed through my fingers. Stop making strange noises. But, it was so sudden. For some reason, Aisha was blushing. Just bear with it. Okay. While still quivering, I touched Aisha's slender shoulder and cast magic nullification. This is incredible. I feel revitalized. I can even see the stairs to the third floor. Aisha's large eyes blinked in surprise. And that's that. I made eye contact with each of my team members. We need to move now. While the other teams are still lost, we should take the lead. Since the use of items like status recovery potions was banned, the other teams would still be dealing with their blindness. Another team's hardship is our team's gain. It can't be helped. The practical evaluation is strict. This is when we have to strike hard. Although our team was the first to enter this underground dungeon, the ultimate deciding factor is the time spent inside. For example, a team that enters the dungeon 15 minutes later than us would tie with us if they exit the dungeon 15 minutes later. Alright. Let's go, Captain. We're behind you all the way. This is our chance to get first place. Noctur, Ralph, and Travis responded enthusiastically. Aisha looked at me thoughtfully. Theo, can I take the lead from here? Go ahead. When it came to navigation, no one surpassed Aisha. Even with my experience and memorization of the underground routes, I couldn't anticipate the movements of roaming monsters. But Aisha could. If things continued this way, we'd easily secure first place. But I couldn't be complacent. Zhang Wehi, because of her existence. Zhang Wehi possessed more mana than I did, so her magic nullification level would be lower, but she could easily dispel this level of blind magic. Additionally, she had superior physical abilities and plenty of practical experience. She wasn't someone to underestimate. However, she was a natural loner. She was more intimidating than inviting. Her team members weren't simply followers, they were all potential heroes with strong personalities. If they feel slighted, there's a high chance there'll be cooperation issues. First place will be mine, Zhang Wehi. As I ruminated on these thoughts, Aisha spoke up. We should take this route. It's the quickest, and the probability of running into a monster is low. Let's get moving. Our team marched ahead at a brisk pace. We breezed through the B4 level of the dungeon with ease. There aren't many monsters on B4 to begin with, but I hadn't expected no monster encounters. That was thanks to Aisha's sharp vision skill. As we ascended to B3, Aisha spoke in a hushed tone. From here on, it will be harder to avoid all monsters. We should prepare for combat. She glanced at me as she said this. She had a point. The closer to the surface, the higher the number of monsters. What kind of monsters should we expect? I feigned ignorance and asked. In the original, they were mainly large spiders or bees. Well, there aren't any within my sight. But according to our lectures, it seems we'll likely encounter spiders or bee-like monsters. True to her top-of-the-class reputation, Aisha responded correctly. I nodded, giving her a faint smile. Alright, let's proceed. We need to stay alert. Understood, Captain. Our team headed in the direction indicated by Aisha. 5 minutes later, Aisha stopped. Oh, as expected, it's a spider. She pointed at a gargantuan spider, roughly 5 meters in diameter. Aisha muttered under her breath. Gosh. Was it always this big? It's huge. No, they weren't that big, but isn't it too big? It appeared about 1.5 times larger than what I remembered from the original. The legs spanning its sides were as thick as my thigh. This must be a giant underground spider. A defining characteristic of this creature was its near-deafness. It seemed to lack ears entirely. However, it had highly developed vision, although not as acute as a human's. So, if we moved carefully, could we avoid it? As I mulled over this, the massive spider shifted slightly. Kya! Kayawaya! Aisha screamed, clinging to my neck. It hurt us. I could feel Aisha trembling against me. Wasn't she supposed to be the smart character? She should have known about the characteristics of the giant underground spider from the lectures. Ha-oa! That creature can't hear. If it could, your scream would have drawn it straight to us. Ah, right. I apologize, everyone. I won't let it happen again. Aisha, her face flushed, addressed the team members. Meanwhile, I could feel the softness of her body pressing against mine. How long do you intend to cling? Oh, I'm sorry, Theo. I just have this fear of spiders. I'll let go soon. I was just taken by surprise. As soon as you can. By the way, did Aisha have such a setting in the original story? I don't recall such a detail. TSK. Noctur observed Aisha and me, still entwined, and clicked his tongue. What is it, Noctur? Theo, you really have no sense of romance. A true warrior should offer his shoulder to a trembling, weak woman. Why does his true warrior have so many rules to abide by? And Aisha is the strongest in our team. Chapter ends. CH 65, Treasure, 5. Suddenly, the giant underground spider in front of us twitched slightly. You could easily miss the subtle movement if you weren't looking for it, but my sharp, observer's eye didn't miss the creature's tiny twitch. Aisha, back up. I couldn't finish my warning. Aisha had already moved back and was gripping her bow, ready for battle. Her stance changed so quickly. Although I was curious, I put it aside. Everyone, get ready for battle. Our first task was to defeat this giant underground spider. Its body was shielded by a hard exoskeleton. Ordinary spiders have soft shells, but this monster, though a spider, was armored. Usually, you'd have to wear down its 8 legs before striking its head, but that's too slow. Given my current team's skills, we can do better. I turned to my armed teammates. Travis, draw its attention. You handled the cockatrice well last time, I know you can do this. Noctur, Ralph, while Travis keeps it busy, sneak up and flip it over. Got it, I'm on it. Understood. I lean towards Aisha. When it's flipped, aim for the red spot on its belly. That's your target. You only get one shot. Yes, understood. Aisha was tightly clenching her teeth, her gaze fixed on the giant underground spider. Good. She's focused. If they follow my plan, this should be an easy fight. Aisha's mana arrow could penetrate its hard shell, but that wasn't the best plan. Using mana to power up a bow isn't efficient. You have to spend a lot of mana to kill just one creature. And we still had more monsters to fight as we moved up. Hoo! Aisha took a deep breath. Her eyes never left the giant underground spider. Then I'll trust you, Aisha. To help, I ran towards Travis. We brought it down quickly. While Travis and I kept its attention, Noctur and Amp, Ralph, coming from the side, flipped it over. The powerful creature tried to get back up, but in the moment it was flipped, its life ended. Aisha's piercing mana arrow had found its mark, the red spot on its belly. I looked at my teammates, pleased. Well done, everyone. Huh, really? I didn't do much. Just ran around a bit. Travis scratched his head. No, everyone did their part perfectly. And that's the truth. Teamwork is key. Even in the easiest and lowest difficulty wizard route would have been dangerous if Neek was alone. So, for someone like me, teamwork is crucial. The giant underground spider we just defeated was an easy target because I knew how to handle it. It's not weak. At this point, even Neek would have struggled to take one down alone. That reminds me, something seems off. A round red mark is left where the giant underground spider died. Just like when we defeated the cockatrice in the previous monster subjugation evaluation, monsters in the magic dungeon vanish without a trace once they're dead. Only one place could pull this off. Turning white. They must have intervened. The area-wide blind magic, the unusually large underground giant spider. It wasn't like this in the original game. Last week, I dealt with Francis, but it seems there's another troublemaker hiding in the academy. These incidents are happening too often. Events that should have taken place at the end of the first year are already occurring. This means that the academy's destruction, where students, instructors, and professors die one by one, is getting closer. In the original game, it started in the 3rd year, but at this rate, it might start at the beginning of the 2nd year. It could even happen by the end of the 1st year. I can't let the academy fall before I graduate. For now, I'll get out of this dungeon first before making a plan. The most important issue is the present. I glanced at the red mark, the size of a grown man's fist. We should take that red mark with us. It will earn us extra points. Understood, I'll handle it. Travis darted over and picked up the red mark. A sticky, gooey liquid trickled from it. Travis didn't flinch. He took off his coat and wrapped the mark in it. Ugh. It's revolting. I cringed. Just looking at it makes my stomach churn. As for Travis, I didn't know him well since he was a minor character, but he was surprisingly useful. If this were a competition of tact, he'd easily take first place in the hero department. Got it. Good job. I looked around at my teammates. Everyone okay? Any injuries? None. It was just like a walk in the park. Same here. Me too. Alright, let's keep moving. Trudge, trudge, trudge. After 2 more fights with the giant underground spiders, our team made it to B2. 3 battles are the bare minimum. In the original game, we had to fight 5 times before ascending to B2. The pace is definitely good. Are we the first ones here? Travis scanned the area. I surveyed the surroundings with my enhanced observer's eye. There were no traces of anyone else passing through. It's clear. Our team is the first to set foot on B2. Everything is progressing as planned. Unless an unexpected event arises, we should remain in the lead. Hee hee. A feeling of accomplishment washes over me. Enough to want to shout, Neek, Peel, what are you two even doing dash? But such unrefined behavior is not allowed for me. Contrary to my elated heart, my exterior remains calm. I looked at my team members with a composed gaze, confirming again, no one is injured, right? Anyone tired? Only this much? It's a breeze. Noctur grinned, evidently in high spirits. The other three also confirmed they had no issues. Alright, let's press on. We need to maintain our lead. My stamina, boosted by natural power, is comparable to Travis's. Obviously, Aisha, Noctur, and Ralph have higher stamina than the both of us. If I'm not tired, they won't be either. So, our team killed 5 more giant underground spiders on B2 and ascended to B1. Travis whistled. Just one more level to climb and we're done. Hard work is always rewarded. All thanks to you guys. For the first time since we enrolled, I think we'll secure first place. Hee hee. Fortunately, there are no monsters in sight. Aisha sighed. All the team members, except me, turned to look at Aisha. Travis swallowed nervously. Aisha, why, what's the matter? It's not that there aren't any. There is exactly one. But it seems to be twice as big as the ones we've been fighting. Then Aisha looked at me, her eyes filled with anxiety. Noctur spoke while swinging his arm in a 360-degree circle. What's the plan, Theo? What indeed, Aisha? Whereabouts is it? And are there definitely no other monsters around? It's close by. About a minute's walk from here. I don't see any other monsters besides that big one. The team members looked at me, their eyes filled with apprehension. A mutant monster, huh? Every once in a while, certain regular monsters are born with extraordinary power. These are called mutant monsters. A mutant monster is significantly stronger than a regular one. The probability of our usual strategy, flipping it over and aiming for its weak spot, working is quite low. Since there are no other monsters around, it's not a named monster. The prerequisite for a named monster is the presence of a swarm of regular monsters surrounding it. Regardless, it's about a minute away. Underground giant spiders have practically no hearing, but their vision is decent. Since it's a mutant, its fundamental attribute, vision, is likely amplified. If we advance a bit more, it'll see us. One misjudgment against such an entity could result not only in my demise but also the death of all my team members. Finally, I settle on a course of action. A strategy emerges in my mind. I locked eyes with the team members and spoke. I have a solution. What is it? But there's something we need to make clear first. And what's that? So far, we've been winning easily, but now death is definitely a possibility. There is also the option to give up first place and call the instructor. I was serious. My strategy can only succeed if the team members trust me unwaveringly. I concluded my words. Calling the instructor is not a shameful act. I just want to hear your honest opinions. My plan, are you able to follow my orders without the slightest doubt? A moment of silence. Then, Noctur placed his hand on my shoulder. Aisha nodded her head. Yes. We trust you, Theo. Chapter ends.